Hey footy fans, welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host Dave, and today I've got a very special guest on the show. He's a Kiwi and Manly legend. We all know him. It's Darrell Williams. How you going, buddy?
Good, mate. How you going, Dave?
Yeah, no, fantastic. All the better for having you on the show. What have you been up to these days, man? What's the great Darrell Williams doing with himself these days?
I feel like all I've been doing is dealing with my football injuries over the last 2 years. I had a knee replacement last year, and I've got neck issues. So my football career is coming back to haunt me. So I feel preoccupied with that at the moment.
All right, fair enough. You did take a few knocks probably in your days, as most league players do, I imagine.
Yeah, we copped a few.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about a few. So I got one big question to kick things off, and that's, you played for Manly, but you're a Kiwi. Who do you support in the NRL, the Warriors or the Sea Eagles?
Yeah, look, I get asked that. I've been asked that a few times. Look, I'm a Kiwi at heart, and I always support a New Zealand team. I played for New Zealand, so I'm always a Kiwi. So my heart lies back there.
Yeah.
To pursue my career, I had to come to Sydney because the Warriors weren't around there. So my journey to Manly started when I was 15.
Yeah.
Back in 1978 on a schoolboys tour, and Manly won the competition that year. And somewhere along the line, I got a Manly jersey that year. And I remember going home from the tour and saying to Dad, I want to play for Manly one day.
Yeah.
You know, as a 15-year-old, I had a target, and probably what separated me from a lot of good football mates and teams I played in with great football players was at an early age. I had something to aspire to and a motivation to succeed, because that's what I wanted to be, a professional player in Sydney.
Right.
So, Manly will always have that spot in my heart. And the Warriors weren't around then.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Let's just say if the Warriors played Manly, I go for the winner.
That's the one. That's a nice little way to solve the problem. Right. So when you were young, who was Darrell Williams, the young Darrell Williams? Where'd you grow up, and what was life like for you as a young fella?
I grew up around the Mount Albert area, Sandringham, and then when I was old enough to go to school, so it's approaching 4 or 5, we moved out west to a place called Henderson.
Yep.
Pretty young suburb at that stage, and that's where Mum and Dad were going to raise their young family. So Henderson it was. I became a Westie there for a while, and played rugby union. As soon as I was old enough to run around, I was a very sporty kid. I wanted to play tennis. I wanted to be involved in any sport.
Nice.
So it was down to the Waitemata Rugby Union Club there for a while.
Yeah.
And around that time, my dad became involved in rugby league. He was an ex-rugby guy himself, and he was coaching at the Waitemata Seagulls, which were the league, Waitemata League team.
Right.
So I ended up switching between both. I played 4 years of union first, went to league, and then played both for as often as I could.
Yeah.
And then it got to school, from fifth form on, it got harder to play both codes. Part of the early bias I came across in my lifetime around sports was a real rugby pressure to play first 15 football for the school.
Right.
It wasn't so much so at my school. Waitakere College was only a young college as it was. But I knew of it around the traps at a lot of other schools, that league guys certainly had to make a choice either to play first 15 or play league and never go back again.
Oh, wow. Was it like that back then? There was a lot of politics around not playing union and going to league, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And, everyone, we had the freedom of choice to pick what we wanted to play, but it was the rugby union guys that drove the divide there. And that became the background for me to decide which direction my career was going to go in.
Right.
I've said previously a couple of things that happened around those formative years between 15 and 18, which way I was going to go. And I saw things on the rugby side of it that I wasn't too keen on. Plus, I liked the game of the league. I was watching it a lot more, and after making the Kiwi schoolboy team at 15 and being over and seeing the Australians play, and my fascination with with their game and how much superior it was as a product to ours.
Yeah.
That was the mountain that you had to climb to succeed in rugby league.
Right.
That was my target, and I set about, doing what I had to do to get there.
Nice work, man. And would you say, as a young fella, did you have that natural talent, or did you have to work like that extra 20% to? Because you played fullback, and that's a pretty skilled position. Generally, players are quite, agile, speed, got some skills, ball skills. Did you have all that kind of naturally, or did you have to really work?
I was quite a natural when I was young. One thing that I had when I was young that was a standout feature was my tackling ability.
Right.
I was pretty fearless as a kid, and I think my schoolmates will remember me at that age. I was a demon tackler.
Yeah.
And I had speed, and I had a pretty solid game. But having already, as I mentioned earlier, at 15, having a target and a goal to reach, that helped separate me from my friends, many of whom could have and should have made it along with me. Yeah. But there are lots of things that separate you along the way. And if you don't have certain qualities, you drop off. And it's why when you get to be in that 13 that run out in the field, it's a pretty special achievement because 100 other guys have failed.
That's right.
With the same aspirations. So you got to have a rounded package. You can't be just good at one thing. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's what league was. You couldn't be, like in rugby, you couldn't be a one-dimensional prop forward.
Right.
And that's all you could do. It was that one job, holding up the scrum. Well, in league, you had to have a lot more skill and weapons in your artillery to play the game. So that attracted me to the league side of it as well. Was that the athleticism required and the skill factor was so much more than rugby way back then. I felt anyway. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing, man. So you definitely had that goal to become a professional. And so you came up through Mount Albert, is that correct, in your younger days?
Yeah, well, I played in some really good teams with the Waitemata Seagulls Rugby League side from 15, 16s and 17s. We had a championship team.
Yeah.
And we were on our way. And I think my dad played it for better or worse, or for worse. My dad had a pretty significant influence on my career.
Yeah.
And I think he had plans set for me. I sort of already had a pathway plan in my head. Mm-hmm. But Dad really drove them. He probably drove it a lot younger than I should have. So I was playing senior Bs at 17, I think.
Oh, wow.
So I look back at my career and I go, how come I never played in the junior Kiwis or the under 23 Kiwis? And I was already playing senior football by then.
Oh, wow. So you just...
So I look back and I talked to a lot of guys that ended up playing the Kiwis with, and I said, never saw you in the 19s or the junior Kiwi, JKs or the other New Zealand age groups. And I said, well, I was already playing senior football.
Wow.
So I think it did, in hindsight, and when I look back, my dad pushed me too far. He took too early, too hard. And around that, I was doing a lot of extra training. So I said before, I had a lot of natural ability. One of my physicality stood out as a defensive type of person. I wasn't scared of anyone.
Wow.
But I also trained. When I told Dad what my goal was, then he took it upon himself to take me to the park every other day and train. So I honed my skills around kicking, being an even better tackler, and lots of skill work that you just needed to have.
Right.
Especially if you were going to go end up in Sydney. So, yeah, I went from there. And when my time was up at senior B level, and the football wasn't fantastic at that level. Mm-hmm. And my dad and I were both aspirational then. So his old club was Mount Albert. So we had a connection there, and of the choices, it seemed like it was tailor made for me. So I went to Mount Albert in 1983 as a 19-year-old.
Wow.
And took me a while. It took me about half a year to get into the first grade side.
Right.
And they were a championship side. Mount Albert have been very successful and were successful before I got there.
Yep.
And in my time there in 83, I was there 83, 84, 85, 86. I played 4 grand finals and won 3 of them.
Wow.
So the club was great. We had the best coach going around, Mike McLennan.
Yes.
should have been a Kiwi coach, but he chose not to, and we won't get into that. But he would have been a great coach.
Fair enough.
He certainly was for us, and we just had a great team. And again, it hit those formative years at Mount Albert really helped set me up for Sydney, because I did a lot of training as a kid, and so by the time as I'm maturing into senior football, I'll probably train 4 times more than most kids my age.
Wow!
Because I had a dad who was fucking psycho.
Yeah,
and
we all need that though to get to the top.
Yeah, and he just wasn't tolerant with injuries. So I was playing with injuries already before I even got to Australia.
Crazy.
And again, in hindsight, it destroyed what could have been a longer career.
Really?
Because I took manliness in the wrong direction, as in, you played with injuries, you just got on with it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the timing around my signing with Manly, I played with Mount Albert, and I'd already hurt my knee there.
Yeah.
And no one knew the extent of it except doctors and physios who, I held them to their client
like confidentiality
privilege. And, I was already playing under the odd needle here and there, so I went to Manly in really bad shape and kept it secret. Right. But yeah, Mount Albert really set me up. I had a great time at Mount Albert, a lot of good friends there, and just a great club. And I've always kept an eye on that club since I've left, and they've been successful ongoing. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So in 1984, I think it was that year, you made the Auckland side as a 20-year-old, and then you actually played against the touring Lions. What was that experience like as a young 20-year-old?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was me having to grow up real fast, because
I imagine
in the New Zealand context, that was the big time. Playing with Mount Albert, and 1984 was a great year for Mount Albert. We won everything that was there. We won. Great team. We played a lot of representative football with Auckland. It was a bit of a changing of the torch between me and the incumbent Nick Wright.
Yeah.
And he played for Otahu, which was our rival club. So, there was a little bit of that. Oh, no, sorry, he played for Manukau. And he was, but them and Otahu were our biggest games. And it was a bit of a passing of the torch, and every player goes through that. So I finally made my way and got into the game against the Pommy team. And, that's a significant statistic, because that Auckland team over the years have beaten all of the international clubs that have come over.
That's right.
Been their toughest game in Auckland at Carwell Park.
Yeah, that was in 77, eh? They beat Australia, France, and Great Britain, all three in 20 days or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazy.
Awesome day. So it was good to be part of that, and good old, I think it was a wet night, typically Auckland weather, and on a muddy, sandy, foggy Carwell Park. It was good to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing, man. And then in 1985, you were called up for the tour of Britain and France, where you made your test debut on the wing. And the tour, what was the tour like, and what was the experience like being in the Kiwis? That's huge, right?
Yeah. That was. I actually was a bit disappointed, because I thought I could have been a chance to play earlier in the year, because we toured at the end of the year. But earlier in the year, the Kiwis played Australia, and they beat them in the last test at Carwell Park.
Yes.
And they only just lost the second test. And that memory will stay with me. New Zealand had the game won until the last minute of the game.
Oh.
And I just remember the effect it had on the crowd at Carwell Park.
Really?
Everyone walked out in silence.
Oh, wow.
We just knew we almost made the upset of the century by beating Australia. And they plucked it from us. And, Australia had a lot of respect for us, in that they knew we were limited in our skill sets, but we were there to compete honestly. And we did the best that we could. And that's all you could ever ask for. And I think there was a begrudging respect from Australia to New Zealand in that light.
Uh-huh.
Don't worry, don't get me wrong. They were arrogant pricks.
Of course.
They had a respect. And that's all you want as a player, is to at least have that. So going to the third test, I thought I might have been an outside chance, especially considering who they picked. But yeah, look, I got my time at the end of the year, and the tours back then were long. They're almost 3 months long.
Yeah, they're crazy long, weren't they, back in the
Yeah,
days?
it was roughly 2 months in England and a month in France. So
Wow.
the experience was great. I had to wait till the third test. And again, that year was the start of the end of a generation of players
Right.
that had come through. Graham Lowe remained loyal to guys that had done the job from before, and rightly so. You've just got to know when that time comes to replace somebody with the newer guy coming up. And that's the cycle of rugby league.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
We went through that and we got there to the third test. It was a shame. It was a 4-4 draw or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was.
It could have gone either way. I think we were good enough to win that test and probably played the better football, but we were playing in front of I'm not sure if that was at Old Trafford or Leeds soccer ground.
Oh, wow.
So they were big stadiums as well, and that with a bunch of singing poms, it was pretty hard to overcome.
They're pretty good crowds, though, right?
Oh, they're great. They're great. Along the way, we went to a local soccer game, first division soccer game, and just experienced a crowd 10 times bigger than anything we had in New Zealand. And the way that they sang their songs and their chants, it was amazing. And then, culturally, to be over there to see a different part of life and reflect on how young New Zealand was in the greater scheme of things.
Oh, for sure.
It was eye-opening, and France was even better as an eye-opener around history and things like that. So, yeah, they were great. I had a great time, treated that tour like I might not ever tour again, so I spent every bit of money we were given. I had a good time off the field.
I bet you did.
I came back penniless, and fortunately I went over again, so I was a lot more subdued the second time around.
Oh, good boy. So you played another 2 tests in '86 against Australia, and you scored 2 tries in the third match. What was that like for you personally as a player? But what was it like also being in the team coming up against Australia, like our biggest arch rivals?
Oh, look, they were awesome. I mean, I later played with players after that series that were new into the team, and I was one of the older heads. And you could just see, that it was like they had a notebook in their back pocket, and they wanted an autograph from the players. I was in awe of them. I'd followed Australian League for a long time before going over to play for Manly. So I knew who they all were, and I knew what they could do.
Yeah.
And, I was shitting myself.
Of course you were.
What the hell's going to happen? These are the best of the best and the gold standard, more so than England. So it was, look, I'm proud of the sides I played in. We did our best. We never ever walked away from the challenge. In Australia, they respected how physical we were.
Yes.
We just lacked some areas in skill.
Yeah.
And that's an endemic issue within the New Zealand Rugby League football fraternity around how we teach our players to play.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned it in other areas that, you can't just rely on the big island boys, pass the ball to them and they run over everybody. You don't learn how to play the game properly that way. So that when everybody else catches up to you in size and strength and all that, what have you got to fall back on? And what the Australians always had was skill. Because they learned to play with skill from a young age.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess you've seen that over the years with New Zealand and Warriors sides in particular, like the NYC competition. The Warriors were so strong because they were big boys and they could run over the top of the little fellas. But as soon as they got those skills, they could outplay you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And that's been a recurring issue. What was a recurring issue for New Zealand guys coming over to Australia? They basically had to be re-educated and how to play the game. That's why it would take, 1 or 2 years for them to really hit their strides because you knew he had the potential.
Yeah.
Now, in the more modern era, they're virtually coming over compared with the skill set, and they're instantly successful, which is good to see because that tide's been coming for a long time. Yeah, and Australia have been aware of it, and they've done things over the years to inhibit our success. All of a sudden they opened up the gates to state of origin for Kiwi players.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, I was a selector around that stage when Brian McLennan was coach, and we had approached, I think it was Willie Mason and Carmichael Hunt.
Oh wow!
to play, and they hadn't played Origin before then.
Right.
And then Australia got a whiff of it next minute. They're playing Origin football.
Yeah.
You know, Australia knew what was coming.
Yeah.
I think the earlier guys like Olsen, Filipano, Fred Arcoy, James Littleway, and Mark Broadhurst. And I know I've missed out a lot, and I apologise for that. But they were the early pioneers. Myself, Gary Freeman, and Brett Todd. We really opened up that hole in the dike, and the trickle became a bit of a flood after that. But for Brent and I to play against each other in a grand final was pretty awesome, and it was a sign of the times that the Kiwis were coming.
Yeah, because I remember Feleti Mateo, when he was at the Warriors, he wanted to play State of Origin, and he also played for Tonga for the World Cup, but he had to choose because he wanted to play for State of Origin, New South Wales.
Yep.
And so he committed to that to play for Australia as well, but then he missed New South Wales selection, but then he couldn't play for Tonga at the World Cup. I was just like, what is going on? Like, it's not like Tonga's going to win. Like, come on. Like, and back then, they weren't. That just mystified me.
It was a lot of short-sightedness from the Australian Rugby League. They were already the most dominant country in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't need to top up their players through State of Origin with the Polynesians.
No.
What we should have had, if we really wanted to develop the game, we should have left State of Origin as guys. The criteria was there around where you're born and whatever.
Yep.
You got New South Wales versus Australia. The curtain raisers should always have been either a New Zealand 15 versus the rest of New Zealand, or a New Zealand team versus a united Polynesian representative team.
Yep.
The development pathway that would have come out of that would have been a better showcase and highlight of the Polynesian talent. And I'm going way back to the 80s. There was room for that. And I went to a lot of Origins, and I'm watching Navy play the Army, or, you know, as a curtain raiser to an Origin or a Test match. Yep. I'm going, no, these are where the Island boys should be. Island teams should be playing. But Australia knew it would ultimately dilute their position on the throne.
Or dominance,
And, their dominance. And I think it's quite short-sighted, because it then showed them a real lack of ingenuity around their own pathway system.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So let's move on to when you went to Papua New Guinea. You played centre in 2 tests, winning 1 each. What was it like to tour Papua New Guinea? Because you know, it's pretty out the gate over there, man. You've
got to be there, and you have to endure the conditions to understand how we could possibly lose a test. I mean, they're fanatical about their game over there, so that was really good. They had great support, and you know, way back then, it's something that should have been captured and promoted a lot more than what it was. And you know, eventually they've made it, and they play in the Sydney, not the Sydney Comp, the Queensland Cup, I think. They have a team in that, which is huge, but it could have happened 10, 20 years earlier. But yeah, being over there, just the lifestyle. You know, we would go to, I think we went to a mayoral reception or something important, and we were all given little bags of betel nut.
Really?
And betel nuts, a drug.
Oh, that's right.
You know, the locals chew on it. Quite like a nut type thing. Anyway, we were all warned. Luckily, our doctor and our physio said, don't even touch that stuff. Unfortunately, one of our players didn't hear the message. He got into it, and I think the last time we saw him, he was hallucinating in a bath.
Oh my God.
That was quite funny. I don't know if it was that tour, but one of them, we had to cancel a game. I think it was that tour, actually. We had to cancel a game because we went out to the field to have a pre-game run, you know, 2 days before the game or the day before the game. And it was like a car park, a metal car park. There's stones and rocks all through it.
You're kidding.
I think they'd had a monsoon go through the place, and the only grass that existed was in the 22 areas at each end. But in the middle third of the field was just bare dirt and rocks and stones. And we've gone, you need to tidy that up, because if someone's head lands on that, it'll kill them.
Oh my God.
So they said, okay, give us a couple of hours and we'll sort it out. So I think they closed down 3 schools and got all the kids out to clean up the field. And I know Graham Lowe grabbed a handful, took a photo, and sent it back.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that picture ended up in the Herald or one of the papers about, this is what we've got to play on. So we went back to inspect the ground, and Lowe said, no, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
What you got to understand, back then, there are people that would walk for 2 days to go to the game.
Yeah.
So this spread out to the country, like the word got out,
Wow.
and they were all coming to the game, and we didn't realise, the impact, and we weren't looking that far down the road, but the local rugby league authority knew that this was going to be an issue, which is why they tried to get us to play.
Yeah.
So I know what I remember happening. We called the game off, and whispers were coming back to our hotel that the crowds were sort of revolting. They're at the ground, and it was like, where the fuck are the Kiwis? Maybe we should go and get them out of their hotel.
Oh no!
And we might take the odd spare and broken bottle and whatever to encourage them to play.
Wow.
So what happened? A few of our players from town, the game's off, so they've gone into town just to have a look around, and they got chased back to the hotel. They got chased back by an angry mob.
Oh
and
my God!
Hotel security that stopped them coming through the gate. The wash-up was we had the army on standby, and we had to lock ourselves in our room because these guys were to kill us.
That's amazing.
Playing the game. So we won the first test. We go on to the second test with all that in the background. The build-up was terrible. There was an air of uncertainty around it.
Yeah.
As it was, they beat us. I mean, the referee was too scored to award us a try that was legitimately scored. He was an Australian referee, and he was only thinking about getting out of there alive. If he had have awarded the try, the crowd would have gone berserk. So in a way, it was probably a good thing, but it wasn't good for us because it was a loss.
Yeah.
Good for Graham Lowe because they used that as an excuse to sack him.
Oh, no.
It wasn't fair because you had to be there to understand the environment. And as it was, when they won, their chairman of the Papua New Guinea Rugby League threw a freaking snake in our changing room.
Wow.
Oh, what the hell's that about? So that's how crazy some of the goings on were over there. And I probably didn't help 2 days out before that test. I ran into an expatriate. There were a lot of Kiwis and Aussies over there that were building infrastructure.
Yep.
They all lived in compounds behind barbed wire fences, and German shepherds were the security guards.
Crazy
back then. And anyway, this guy had a boat. He's from my old Waitemata Rugby League club. So I said, I'll take a few of you boys out fishing if you want. So, how good's this? It basically turned into a piss up on a boat in 60-degree heat, and we drove about 10k out into the water, and we're drinking all the way out there. And I remember him saying, "This patch of water is known as Shark Alley, so just be careful."
Oh wow!
Well, that was on the way out. 1,000 beers later, on the way back, we've all seen a marker in the water which sort of went, "This is Shark Alley."
Right.
And the idiots we were, we just thought it would be fun to try and throw each other off the boat.
Oh.
I remember me and another player, I'm hanging on to a rail with one hand, he's hanging on with the other, we're punching the shit out of each other to see who would let go. And I think both of us were equally as afraid of sharks. So we might have come home we might have got back on board with blood nose, but no, I wasn't going in the water for him.
No way. No way.
As it was, we got back and we missed the team meeting. And Lowe wasn't real happy. So that wasn't good. A couple of nights out from the test, that probably contributed from a discipline point of view.
Yeah.
My happiest hour. But he said, where were you? And he said, oh, you wouldn't believe it. We caught a marlin. Yeah. It's a record. He's looking at me because I'm doing the talking. And everyone's standing behind me like, listen to what he's got to say. I said, we caught a marlin. I said, a friend from New Zealand took us out, blah, blah, blah. And he just looks at me and goes, well, where's the marlin? So, well, they're chopping it up back in town, and then they're going to cut it up, and we'll all get a steak out of it, tomorrow. And he goes, I'll be waiting for one of those steaks. Yep. We had a reporter with us who naively thought I was telling the truth.
Oh, really?
So I think it ended up in Sunday News at 8 o'clock. Back then, Kiwis catch this big marlin, but he's got no picture because he has no freaking marlin.
There was no marlin.
But yeah, that was New Guinea. Awesome. Another story from that freaking trip. We had a bus that was the oldest bus in the world. It was pink with a big white cow on the side of it.
Yeah.
It had wooden floorboards with holes in it.
Oh, wow.
Bench seats and sliding windows. Anyway,
like practically pristine condition for over there.
Yeah. So we were up in the Highlands. We were at Goroka, I think, and on the way down to Lay, which is at sea level, I think there was an agreement to stop off at the school and play a game of touch with the kids or whatever. And we did that, and we got back in the bus, and we just noticed one of the boys sitting behind the bus driver noticed a bottle of Coke.
Yeah.
And it just didn't smell right. Anyway, when he turned a 3-point turn out of the car park into a 20-point turn, we got a little bit suspicious. So we drive along, and then we need a piss stop. So we get out of the bus, and some of the guys have bought souvenirs, bow and arrows, and spears, and all that.
Right.
One of the boys, I think it was Ronnie O'Regan's, turned around to pretend to shoot one of the boys as he's coming out of the bus.
Yeah.
Like he aims at him, and then he's meant to fire it up in the air, but instead he fires it straight at the bus and hits the bus driver.
Oh shit!
He nicks his arm.
Oh my god!
He does this big Hollywood. He fell over himself, and it was a dribble of blood from a little scratch. Anyway, we didn't have much sympathy for him. Told him to get his ass up and get back in the bus. Anyway, 2 minutes down the road, and we're driving down some roads that were just sheer drops on either side. And the players, I think it was Mark Healy, was sitting behind him, grabbed the Coke bottle and went, "This is straight freaking bourbon." The guy was pissed. So we tell him to pull over because we start to actually notice how erratically he's driving. So we tell him to pull over, and he won't pull over, and all of a sudden he can't speak English. So because forwards are dumb, they go, Dean Lonergan and Brent Todd, I think, go up and pull this guy out of his seat while the bus is moving. And Dean Lonergan gets in the bus and he drives it all the way down. So Dean to the rescue, but I don't know about getting him out of the seat while the bus is still going. And there's sheer drops on either side of it. So New Guinea was an experience, mate.
I knew it would be. Every time I ask a player what was Papua New Guinea like, there's always a good story. It's great. It's great. Oh, wow. Okay, so let's move on. 1987, you sign with Manly. All the details. How did you manage to go to the club you desperately wanted to play for a start? Because there was all those strict rules and transfer fees and all of that stuff going on with New Zealand Rugby League. So how did you get there? And was there any nerves or apprehension about going over there, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, look, there was certainly some roadblocks in the way to qualify to go to Australia back then. Mm-hmm. To even before a transfer fee was even mentioned, and it was a $26,000 transfer fee back then.
Damn.
So that came out of our money.
Wow.
So whatever I signed for, 26 grand came out of that. It wasn't a separate amount.
Right.
Either that, or I'm the dumbest guy in the world. I allowed them to take it out of my contract.
Crazy.
I suspect happened. But to even get to that stage, the qualification was you had to have played 6 tests.
Yes.
Or go on 2 tours.
Right.
To qualify to even have that talk with the Sydney club. Okay. And then they had to come up with the 26 grand.
Wow, that's a lot of hoops, man.
Yeah. I'm like, hang on a second, what's going on here? There's probably something to touch on later on, as in New Zealand being a bit of a breeding ground for the Australian clubs.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether in hindsight we should have looked at that and turned that into a different type of fee where the Sydney clubs did pay an amount that went into the New Zealand Rugby League or the Auckland Rugby League or probably the New Zealand Rugby League. And that money was then used, in the competitions and in the clubs and, passed on at least.
Yeah.
So there was a benefit from someone like myself or Sonny Bill or Gary Freeman or whatever coming over here, that there was something that came back to New Zealand.
We got our money from a top Kiwi player going over to their competition and strengthening their games and their ratings and all of that sort of thing. Yeah.
I don't think it should have been inhibitive, in preventing us from getting the contract, because not everyone was earning top money. So if you went on good money and you're getting 26 grand taken out straight off the bat,
Wow.
There's not much left.
Not much left,
So
no.
I reckon there should have been a fee, but it's a fee that should have gone to New Zealand Rugby League and then redistributed out through all the different competitions.
Right.
But I think, so to get through that, and the Australian clubs knew that, so you had to have something going for you, for them to go through all that trouble. And as you mentioned before, in the 86 series, I played the first test, I dropped for the second test and played the third test in Australia. And although we lost, I always, scoring tries against Australia is always, oh shit, one of these guys is good enough to score a try. Mind you, there's a lot of good work lead up before I scored my try. So it allowed me to show a bit of speed in one of them. And overall in the game, and I was only playing, full? I can't remember if I was playing fullback or wing. In that
Australia, you're on the wing.
Yeah. In that third test, I was on the wing. And again, this was part of the transition out of the old guys into the new guys, being 1986. I think there was one significant moment. I think it was that game where Peter Sterling kicks the ball to my wing, like a fifth tackle kick. It's not the best of kick, and I catch the ball at my toes.
Right.
So it just showed a bit of skill, and I think that's all the Australians wanted to see. They all knew we were physically capable, but they wanted to see if there was a bit more to the physicality, and what talent or what knowledge of the game have you got? Are you sound in defence, and are you tough enough and hard enough to last week in, week out? Because that was the other thing too.
Yeah, man.
Was their standard and their physicality was so much more than anything I had at Mount Albert.
Right.
So much more. So again, kudos to all the players who went over and made it straight away.
Yep.
Because that was a real testament to your ability.
Yes.
And and to survive with the best of the best.
Yeah.
So, my pathway was from 15 years old, through the Kiwis, through Auckland, through Mount Albert, through Auckland, through the Kiwis, and then it was a matter of time if I was good enough. One of the things I had on my side, I always had a self-belief that I was good enough.
Yep.
So I was nervous because I didn't want to let anyone down, only from that point of view.
Yep.
I was fully confident in my ability. It was just, this is a new surrounding, new teammates.
Yeah.
Am I good enough? I knew I was good enough, but you need the chance to show it. So my nerves weren't real bad, other than I don't want to let them down. I might make a mistake, but I'll make less mistakes than they would expect. And there's not a lot that you need in rugby league to know that you've made it. And a few people have asked me, when you got to Manly, the training was hard, and Mount Albert helped me prepare for that. That was on another level, and I'd already had knee issues, so I was already struggling with that.
Right.
Before our first game, we played, which was a funny setup. We played St. George at Canterbury's home ground. I don't know how that, and it was in the rain. I was only on the wing, and that's the club hedging their bets, and it's just ease them into this slowly.
Right.
I remember thinking, and the Australians are a little bit standoffish because you're a Kiwi coming to take one of their spots. Number one.
Yes.
There's a bit of what do we say in Australia? There's a bit of latent, how do I say it, a form of racism.
Right.
They have their issues over here with that. So, they're definitely not looking out for non-white guys. And I think Olsen Filipano wrote a lot about that in his book.
Right.
And he struggled with it a lot
at
the time. I remember, just as a side thing, I remember ringing my dad after the first week in Australia. All of a sudden, I've got to grow up. Because I lived at home until I came over here.
Yeah.
And I'm over here, and I'm like, shit, who's going to cook dinner? And my first night, I waited up till 9 o'clock for Mum to walk out the kitchen. Okay, looks like I've got to make my own dinner.
Yep.
So,
baked beans on toast.
Yeah, I go down to the shops and I see this cheese called coon cheese. I run down, I said, I'm not freaking buying that. Maybe I was a bit naive back then, but anyway, there was a bit of that. So, I definitely, and I think every other Kiwi, especially the Polynesians, had to, do these guys accept me or not? Yeah. And for Australians, it was, if you can handle yourself on the field and do the job, then you're in.
Right.
So for me, I just got to look. I remember Paul Vautin was our captain at the time. And before my first game, I'm looking around the room. I'm basically built a little shrine in the corner to my Manly jersey because the first time I put it on for a game. And I've got all that shit going on. Like, this is special for me. I'm sort of a little bit oblivious to the rest of the crew because this is my pathway. I'm here. Now I can't fuck it up.
No.
So, and you know, and I'm like, I've got to prove myself to these guys. And I remember Fatty just looking over him, and he just gave me a look that says, "You're in. You're in here." He said 1,000 words in a little quick stare.
Right, that's all you needed.
Hey, big boy, put the big pants on. You're in with us. You're only here because you're good enough to be here. So get out and do what you can do. So that really got rid of the nerves. I felt like I belonged.
That's good.
It was just a process of getting games under my belt and showing them that I could compete with them and not let them down. And it was onwards from there.
Yeah, they had a pretty stacked team. Like you said, Fatty Boyd and Dale Shearer, Michael O'Connor, Cliff Lyons, Des Hasler, Noel Cleal. Like, there's some amazing names in that team.
Part of Manly's bad reputation comes from buying players over their history. Rated other clubs, mind you. Every club, if they were as wealthy as Manly, would have done the same. And if given the same opportunities, they would have done exactly the same. So I think it's wrong to pin that on Manly. You can have a lot of stars in your team, but you've got to mix those ingredients to get the best out of them. And Manly had a lot of superstar teams. I remember counting 8 internationals in their reserve grade side.
Wow,
during the 80s before I got.
That's crazy.
So they always had it. So it was finding the balances. And with me, I mean, I went there as a fullback. And it was only because my knee got worse and worse during the year, and I was struggling with it. At fullback, defensively, I was potentially exposed in a one-on-one. I knew how to line somebody up one-on-one, but I was vulnerable to a sidestep or anything like that because my knee would just cave in on me if I tried to change direction.
Oh, no.
And trying to take off the mark. It would take me 3 or 4 steps before I could get up to speed. And by that time, it's usually too late. The guy's already away from me. So my coach, Bob Fulton, saw this towards, probably 7 games into the year. I don't know if he had a hunch, and I'd sworn the doctors to secrecy because they knew I had no medial ligament, no cruciate ligament.
Oh, wow.
And all my cartilage was torn up.
And you're playing like that?
I did, I did that with Mount Albert.
That is crazy.
I went and saw the top surgeon in New Zealand. I still can't remember his name. And he said, "You're out. This 6 months. You can't play." And I actually remember, I didn't mention this previously, but I actually went to hospital because my knee was gone. It was fucked. I had the tag on my wrist. I was ready to go to my room, and my dad wasn't super keen on that. And he had one more talk to me and said, "This is your start with Manly. You might not get another one."
Well, you might not.
I tore it off, and we walked.
Oh my God!
We walked. Sorry, I said to the doctor, "You can't do a reconstruction. Just tidy up the meniscus, which is floating through my knee and it's jamming in the joints."
Right.
So he did an operation that back then was probably a 2-month thing, a 1-month thing.
Right.
So he did that. I think 2 days later, I was out running on it on my own around Mount Albert, around
Oh my God!
because I'd set my sights on what I wanted to do. So I did that. That was torture and it was hard, and I was only making my knee worse. So I carried it through, and then it started to get to the point where I needed painkillers to get through training.
Oh, wow.
And I think around that time, the coach may have seen a bit of a vulnerability, and he just came to me and Dale Shearer, who was playing the centres. And he said, "Look, I think a better mix." And I think defensively, I was showing that I was a pretty decent defender. I think I was better use as a defender, not an attacker, in the front line, rather than as a last-minute tackler, as a fullback. And, whether he suspected that if someone stepped me, out in the open, it was going to be a bit ugly. And Dale Shearer was a better open paddock ball return, and he had tons of speed on him. So it was a pretty good switch.
Yeah.
The day, and I was lucky I had the versatility, and it's probably something else that was good in my regard was that I wasn't just a one-trick pony. I could play wing with Hayden, or I could play in the centres. So in the centres, was me and Michael O'Connor. Michael provided so much attack, and then we had as a centre, and he was very smart when he chose which side to play centre on. So he played to Cliffy's left, which was Cliffy's best left to right to left pass.
Yes.
So that was a strong pass.
Yep.
So he could throw a longer ball than he could on the short side to me. So I changed my game to run a bit shorter.
Okay.
Off his shoulder, so to speak, to give a different look in attack, because he would do a wrist flip pass to me.
Right.
Right side of the field, because that was his weak side.
Yep.
So Michael read it, and so Cliffy had a proclivity to keep freaking running to his side of the field all the time.
Right.
Michael scored 1,000 tries in that year, and I scored overall. But the formula was there.
Yeah, for sure.
And what I probably brought to the back line was a bit of a steadiness to it, because they'd been too flashy in the past, and they were really enterprising. It was a really enterprising football team that played open football. But when you play that type of game, you make a lot of mistakes. So I probably, just calmed that back line down a little bit, and it worked, and it was a great back line. So yeah, happy days. Yeah,
and Rowdy at the back, he's just Mr. Consistent, and he was so good, wasn't he? Yeah.
He made that position his own, and he owned it. And he played Origin, he played for Australia.
Yeah. Amazing. So you guys actually basically just destroyed everybody that season. Minor premiers. I think you were 6 points ahead of the next team on the ladder.
We were convincing minor premiers, yeah. We won 12 in a row. So
that's crazy. How good is that? And so have you got any other great memories from that round robin series before the finals? Was there any massive wins or any games that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, the big one, and it was a big game for a lot of reasons, was at the halfway mark. Balmain were coming first and we were coming second.
Yep.
We were playing a home game against the Brookvale Oval.
Yep.
And the Wallabies had come out to watch us. They were in town, and Michael, being an ex-Wallaby, wanted to put on a good show for them. And this was a real, who's the real deal type of game. Who are the pretenders and who's the real deal?
Yeah.
But at that point, my knee was fucked.
Yeah.
I went to see Merv Cross, who was the top surgeon at the time, and looked at me, and we got X-rays and scans, and he said, "Well, you need a reconstruction. You need it tomorrow."
Oh no, that's not good.
Yeah, and I said, I want to play this game because I think the winner can go on and give the premiership a real shake.
Right.
And he said, "Well, it's an operation tomorrow and out for 6 months, or play a game and maybe never walk again."
Wow.
So I said, "Look, I'll go to training tonight. If I can back up from training, I'll play the game.
Yep.
If it's no good, I'll come back and see it."
Okay.
So that's when I started painkillers.
Yep.
So we smashed Balmain in that game. We convincingly beat them.
Oh, really?
We scored 1 million tries against them, and we just showed what we could do on our day. And that day on, we got a belief. We knew then that we could win the comp.
Yep.
Which was a long way out. It was only halfway through the game. So we developed a real confidence. The games that we lost, so we went on. That was part of a 12-game run, I think.
Right.
And if we played, it was because we had an off day. We weren't beaten. We just had a bad day, and it happens. And that's where the coach has got to be good enough. And we had one of the best coaches in the game at the time. Yep. But even he admitted, Bozo was an ex-legend. He's an immortal. Been there, done that, and he understood players. And he knew when to let the gas off a bit and give us a training run off to refresh and all that. So he also admitted, I can only be a good coach if I've got the cattle. And I finally got the right cattle in this team. And the biggest thing he did in that year was he brought Kevin Ward over from England.
Okay.
Kevin gave us a new sort of authority from our front row, because we didn't have an authoritative forward pack. We didn't have a Balmain or a Canterbury pack who would throw. They would throw punches first and play football second.
Yeah.
They were real manly, tough guys. You know.
Is that like your Blocker Roach and all of them?
Blocker, yeah. Blocker.
He was a mongrel, wasn't he?
Yeah, Tunksy and Billmeister. Gillespie.
Yeah, Suriname.
Oh, yeah. Big giants as well.
Yeah, they were massive.
They could all play, and they could all, they could sort of fight. Yeah, and you know, we had a team that just played football and played skill, so we didn't have that. But Kevin came along and really gave us a new authority up front. You know, no one was going to mess with him.
Yep.
And he finally gave us that little legitimacy in our forward pack.
That alpha male you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't worry, our forward pack, without the forward pack, Cliffy and Des and Michael and Dale, we couldn't do our thing because rugby league's about going forward first. It's a very basic formula in rugby league. Our forwards did the job, so I wouldn't swap them for anyone.
Yep.
Just in comparisons, those are the comparisons I make. But going back to that game, that was a big game for me because it was either I go and have an operation and I'm done for the year.
Yeah.
And you know what happens the year after? Am I good enough to keep going? To Manly start looking at replacements to cover me. So that started the whole needle thing. And, you know, I ended up playing a grand final with 8 needles.
That's crazy.
And I'd been doing that for 2 months.
Oh, man. So that got you right through to the end of the season. 8 needles a game.
Yeah. And what compounded that for me, I never really adjusted to the heat over there. It was hot. God. We played the semi and the final with 30-plus degrees.
That's crazy. You played Eastern Suburbs, didn't you? In the semi.
Yeah. That was the game of the semis. That was brutal. It was a low-scoring game. It's the toughest game I've ever played in.
Really?
It's the toughest game I've ever played.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, look, and don't worry, I was watching a lot of the tough stuff from out in the safe spot in the centres. I'm watching one of our forwards, Phil Daly, had come back from a broken jaw. Yeah. So he'd been out for a few weeks. He takes the first or second hit up off the kickoff, and 3 or 4 of them tackle him. They're all trying to elbow him in the jaw, and they march him back about 5 meters.
Wow.
You know, that was like, fuck, game on.
Yeah.
Game on, which is very brave for a centre to say.
Yeah.
And our guys stood up, and in that game, Fatty got split open around his eye. It was friendly fire. Cliff Lyons came over. Elbow. I think he needed 60-something stitches, like internally. You know, after the game, he just got zippered up as you do in league. You go off and go back on, and that's going back. That's the stuff that I love. Like, you know,
a lot of the fans do as well.
You could see his skull. I mean, it was that big.
Oh man!
I remember him running past me, and he's got blood all coming down his face, and he's going off with the trainer. And he looks around and he sees half a break on the short side, and I'm on the open, and he just goes, cover. And I was buggered, my knees rooted, and he's asking me to cover like 16 minutes. And I was buggered, but I saw him, and I went, well, that's inspirational. How can I say no? So, you know, I take off, and I didn't need to make a tackle or anything, but it's just the little things you did. When you saw guys going through that, and then you saw them back on the field 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
You know, that I think gave us all a little bit of it was a good reminder before the grand final. After getting through that test, that's our captain leading by example.
Absolutely.
So that's the guy we follow.
Yeah.
So getting to the final, we knew it would be Canberra in the final because the training run after that game against the Roosters, hardly any of us could walk. We were that beaten up, and we just thought, well, what the hell are these going to be like?
Because you would have had the week off, because it's the 5-team final series back then.
That's right.
So you went straight through to the grand final, and they had to keep playing.
That's right. Yeah. It's a good format.
I reckon, bring it back.
It's sort of rewarded you because we've done all the hard yards during the year, and like you said, we won the premiership 6 points clear, I think.
Yeah,
which is 3 wins. You know, which is pretty convincing in the top 5.
Yeah.
So we got the run through, but seriously, we earned it after playing the Roosters.
Yep.
I felt sorry for them not being able to back up the week later against Canberra.
Yeah.
I felt
not your problem.
I felt sorry for about 0.01 of a second. And then, you know, Canberra beat them, which we knew they would, because we just knew they had no gas for that game.
Right.
then we knew that playing an extra game on a hot Sunday afternoon would take a bit out of the Canberra guys. So we were extremely confident going into the game.
Yeah. So how did the grand final play out? It wasn't a massive scoreline, but you got the job done pretty comfortably, sort of. Is that how the feeling was in the field?
Yeah, look, we knew after a couple of minutes they couldn't beat us.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. It's pretty cool when you're in that mindset, because there are a lot of times they could have run over the top of us, and there were a few breaks that they made that could have turned into something bigger. But when you have a belief, things sort of go your way a little bit. You know, it's you make your own luck with that type of belief.
Yes.
But it was a frustrating day because, again, like I said, I was buggered. The painkillers were really catching up to me. And Cliff Lyons had a really weird game. He had a man of the match game.
Yep.
He kept running Michael and I out of position because he ran so much. I don't think I got a ball off him for 3/4 of the game.
Wow.
But playing as a centre, he kept running me and the winger out of room because he was being given the space to run, so he kept on running.
Yep.
And it's good and it's bad because it runs you out of weapons.
Yeah.
So it's by accident. This is by accident. It wasn't a design defence by Canberra. It was bad defence that actually worked for them in the end, because Cliffy could only run so far before he had to pass it. But by then, a lot of his options had gone because he'd run us all out of the room. So for me, that grand final was one of the most frustrating games that we've played in.
Oh, right.
Notwithstanding, I was buggered. I could hardly run. For the last month and a half, I was hardly training because my knees were so bad.
Yeah.
I was doing the bare minimum to be able to stay in that team and not have the coach start asking questions.
Right. Oh, that's incredible. I don't know how you did it. And I suppose there's the other little bit of a wager going on here. You had yourself and Brent Todd going for first ever Kiwi to win a grand final in Australia, and you got the chocolates.
Which I remind Toddy about all the time.
I'm sure you do.
I wasn't aware of that. I hadn't really looked that up as a stat. But when I did learn, I felt pretty special. So I knew the guys that had been before me.
Yeah.
And I'll just backtrack. You know, Mark Broadhurst, Christchurch man.
Yep.
He played for Manly, and he definitely played in 81 or 82.
Okay.
And that was a savage game against Newtown, and there was a big fight. And the guy that he had a fight with headbutted him twice and closed. But by the time the referee broke up the fight, called Mark aside to give him the talk, both his eyes were closed.
Crazy.
And I went to a rugby union meeting when I was young, and they showed that fight as what rugby league was all about. So that turned me off rugby.
Yeah.
That really, I got up with my dad and walked out of that meeting. It was a little meeting in our district out West Auckland. They got all the boys together, all the kids, to talk about rugby union and, the futures in rugby union, and this is what rugby league's like. And all they showed was that fight. I went, come on.
Yeah, this is so much more. That's just one incident that's got nothing to do with the rest of the game.
Yeah,
it's a shame they do that. Again, those politics about league versus union.
Yeah. Well, notwithstanding back then too, I grew up where on Sunday papers you'd have to flick over 5-6 pages before you get a little column on rugby league.
Yeah.
But you'd had 5 or 6 pages of rugby union. It was ridiculous.
It actually wasn't much different in the 90s when I was only 10 years old or 11 when the Warriors started. So the late 90s, I'm about 13 or 14. And there still wasn't that much ever in the paper about rugby league then. And the Warriors were around, and it still wasn't that great because I was the one league fan at school. Everyone else was rugby. There was a couple of other league fans, but not like obsessed like I was. Like, it just wasn't a thing. It just wasn't.
Well, I sort of became a bit like that. At school you play ball rush and you play all your games during your lunch break and all that. And you'd say, I'm going to be Kurt Sorensen, or I'm going to, you'd take on a persona. And, and I say, I'm just going to be Darrell Williams. And then I'd smash on my mates because I could tackle back. But yeah, I hated that, that side of the equation in New Zealand. And, to the point where you can only play one contact sport in school.
Yep.
It's rugby union.
Always.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
But we've got to fight for ourselves, and I don't think we've had capable people in New Zealand Rugby League for forever. to not be able to gain more ascendancy via the Warriors for rugby league in New Zealand. And I'm talking, for the rest of New Zealand, outside of Auckland, the Canterbury Rugby League was the second strongest province in New Zealand. Like, a lot more work should have gone in to whether it was money or whatever was required to really help that competition along. Yeah. You had a lot of clubs, a lot of good players. Adrian Shelford, God bless his soul, and Wayne Wallace.
Yep, big name down here.
Came out of there, and there were so many players that there just needed to be more development in that area.
Yeah.
Because what we could have had eventually would have been a North Island versus South Island.
Oh, I wish we
that would have been our state of origin.
Yeah, we need that.
Because what the Australians said, they played a test series after they went to a state of origin series.
Yeah.
So they were battle hardened.
Yeah.
I'd come off a game against, Mount Albert versus Te Atatu, and then go and play a test match.
I
know. It just wasn't.
That's not fair.
It just wasn't the same. It's a shame that not enough work was put in, and I hated the second fiddle that we played in rugby union.
Yep.
And even things like they always decried that their game was an amateur game. Oh, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
But we were going to look at getting John Kerwin in 1988 or 89.
Oh, wow.
John Kerwin, Zinzambrook, and Michael Jones.
Oh, there's three good gets if you got them.
Yeah. Well, John Kerwin was earning more money then than Wally Lewis was.
Wow.
So rugby union can shove that shit up their ass around in an amateur game. But there were ways to get around in the amateur game and get paid, but don't call it the amateur game and run down rugby league as a professional game.
Yeah,
so that's really where I have bones with the rugby union side of it. Yep. And the fact that whenever I was with the Kiwis and the All Blacks from the same town, we'd reach out to them and they always knocked us back.
Yeah.
So,
it's been that way for a long time. But a good talk us through that match. That had to be great, right?
Yeah, well, it was. We had a new coach, Tony Gordon. And,
oh yes.
I've said previously, I didn't think he was up to it. We needed a lot more than what he had to offer, unfortunately. We were lucky we had a few old heads in that team, like Hugh McGann and Gary Freeman, myself, and we were sort of coming over the top of Tony a little bit, saying, look, we probably should go this way, that way. So the build-up was hard. Tony's training wasn't conducive to a preparation that you need.
Yeah.
We sort of said, we've got to do this for ourselves, despite the other influences around us. And so the win in that, with that background, was a real team win against an Australian side who looked at us on paper and went, who's this?
Yeah.
Because we were going through our transition. We had a lot of, Gary Mercer was in. We had a lot of the old familiar faces weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
Mark Graham, Kevin Tarmany, Gary Campbell, James Littlewell, those guys had moved on, and this was the transitional side with the new talent coming in.
Yep.
But still a lot of guys that hadn't played any significant football. So Australia looked at us, and I think that was their undoing. They took us too light. I think mentally, not physically, because they still tried to beat us up in the game. But it's an unheralded win because we did so well to keep them to 13-6, one try.
Definitely.
And we kept them scoreless in the second half.
Wow.
I don't think it's been done before. So, it's a win that should be celebrated more because we were the underdogs by a million.
I mean, I'm totally going off the top of my head here. I'm guessing players in the side that you were playing with, like your Peter Sterling's, Brett Kenny's, Mel Meninga's, and all of them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They didn't pick their B side.
No, it was a great team.
They picked their best side that would compete any other day of the week. They just mentally took their foot off the pedal because they saw the makeup of the team. I've said it before, they had an arrogance about them, and I think maybe it was a game where they thought they could just turn up and win.
Yeah.
But we hung around, and Ross Taylor showed really early, and another good Christchurch guy, a tough guy who should have had more of a career than he did, but he broke his arm that many times.
Yeah.
He stood up to them And he punched on with them right at the start and went, yeah, we're not going to be bullied by you guys.
Oh, that's good.
And then he got back, Mark Oro, Sam Stewart, Toddy, everyone backed him up, and him again, they were all there.
Yeah.
I eventually got there from fullback, well after everything had calmed down.
That's good.
But yeah, look, that's probably one of my proudest moments playing in the Kiwis was
awesome.
Being in that team and being there and hanging in there right to the end.
It's interesting you say that, because like I had Terry Hermanson on the show last week, and his favourite moment was scoring a try in the Anzac Test win against Australia when they beat them in 1998, and it just proves that the Kiwis, they actually hold that national jersey as the pinnacle. And whereas I think in Australia, and I think it's the elephant in the room, state of origin that's their thing.
Yeah. It's their focus. Unfortunately, because they've done it so easily on the international stage.
Yeah,
it's sort of like, where's the challenge? The real challenges in there, and the marketing around the mate versus mate state of origin. It's built up so much more than any test series.
Yeah.
So, I get it as an Australian. You want to play in front of the biggest crowds you can play in.
Of course you do.
Those crowds are bigger than test crowds.
And the cash for each game never hurt either.
Yeah. So, so they had the ideal preparation as well. It's like I'm saying, if we could have put more work into the rest of New Zealand, and then had our own state of origin, it would have given us a better preparation to play in Australia. So, for the guys that play for the Kiwis, were punching way above their weight in that context. And I'm proud of every Kiwi team that I've seen play against the Australians. Like they've done their best. Yeah, we've lost a lot of times, but not because we didn't try.
But how sweet are the wins that we do get? I remember 2003 when we had like a no-name side, like really like Thomas Luluai was like 17 or 18 or something, debuting for New Zealand, an absolute unknown, and they bloody beat them. Clinton Torpey had an absolute blinder. Yep. He was so raw as a young fellow, and it's unbelievable win. Unbelievable.
I think that's one of the things that the Australians never had. One of the things we had in the Kiwi team was a real cultural camaraderie.
Yeah.
Especially amongst the Polynesian boys. They bring that to the table amongst themselves, but it's infectious and it becomes part of the whole. So everybody buys in to family. Australians don't have that connection. They don't have the same cultural background, and that's white Australians in that sense.
Yep.
So what I found in a test series or on a tour away, we got better as we went along.
Yeah.
And we became closer as mates and fellow players on a football field where we would do anything for each other. It didn't always show in the results, but it was still there.
Yeah.
I think that's something the Australians always missed out on, and something that we had in our favour. So you could bring, well, not that Thomas Luluai was an ordinary player. He was a great player.
Absolutely.
But we start talking about him because he rises to the occasion in a test match. And I've got no doubt it had a lot to do with the surrounding and the other guys with him that pulled him up a peg.
Yeah, I definitely noticed. My best mate Greg, we've been mates since high school. He's like the one basically I'm going to take credit. He turned into a massive rugby league fan thanks to me. He's the one guy I had at school, and he's always noticed that. He's always said it. Kiwis always build into series. The longer they stay together, the longer they play together, they always end up either in the final and either close to winning it or they win it. And that's always been the trend.
Look, another disadvantage the Kiwis have always had is that to pick our best players, we've had to go around the world to get them.
Yes.
Because we had players in England, Australia and New Zealand for a long, long time.
Yep.
Now we predominantly pick them out of Australia.
Yeah.
But going back not so many years. So you've got to get these guys from different parts of the world, bring them together. From a financial point of view, they can only be together for about a week because it just costs too much money. So you have to your preparation is really limited. You're lucky if you get one or two full team runs together. So that's your prep to go into a test series against the best of the best. So again, in that light, it's always been a good showing.
Yeah, man. Especially like you had like the Paul brothers. They had to fly them over. They get like next to with the team, and then they're off again. And it's like, how do you like that jet lag for a start? And then that's crazy.
Yeah, I coached Samoa in the 2000 World Cup in England.
Yes, you did.
And I had to go to New Zealand and get the guys I was picking from New Zealand to oversee their training, and then leave capable people to oversee that. To get the Australian contingent and organise their training, and they train separately. Then I'd have to rely on, guys that I could trust in England to get a few of those players together. So that's a freaking hard thing. And we never got together until we were all in England.
Wow.
And, we probably had a week, 4 days before our first game.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Very hard, yeah. Well, because we're talking about Samoa, I was going to mention that later on, but we might as well carry on with that. What was it like building that squad and going to the 2000 World Cup? Because you guys did quite well. You made the quarterfinals.
We did. Yeah. Look, there was a lot of drama in the lead up to that, because I'd seen why some of the boys weren't real keen to put their hand up for Samoa in the past. And before that, Samoa participated in the Pacific Cup.
Yep.
But Samoa had very little to do with it. It was all volunteer work from guys in Auckland, from the Polynesian community. The Richmond Club were at the forefront of that, which they had a high population of Polynesians playing through that club, and it's traditionally a Polynesian club in that sense. So it was all volunteer stuff. So when you got guys playing NRL or ARL back in my day, playing for professional clubs and the professional setups, it's you got to take your head out of your ass and realise it is what it is.
Yeah.
Come back into an amateur setup and you just got to do your best.
Yeah.
A lot of guys chose not to.
Yeah.
When I got in there, I only took it on. I'd already been there with Graham Lowe in '95 as assistant, which is how I did after he decided not to do it. But I did say, unless we have the money to go over it and be somewhat professional, I want to get the guys that we need to compete, not just make up the numbers, but actually compete.
Yeah, for sure.
And we did. We had a good sponsor at the Samoa, and the Rugby League Federation gave a certain amount of money. But I was dealing with some pretty questionable people in Samoa.
Right.
So I really had to take on and control as much of the money to make sure it went where it needed to go.
Right.
So I did everything in the end. I was managing a pub in Manly at the time, so I'm doing night shift stuff. I'm getting home, and because of the time difference, and to do all our registrations for the competition for the players and all of that, I had to do that at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I just pulled a 12-hour shift.
Oh, mate.
And do all the liaising, and then liaise with training and all that, and get our diets in order. And it was a really hard prep in that sense.
Yeah.
So the team went over looking the part. They were. I could see in their eyes. They were proud to wear the gear we give them, because they looked like the professional Kiwis, the professional Aussies, and great for them. They didn't look like a lowly Pacific Island country with no resources. They looked the part. I made sure they looked the part.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, boys, you do your talkings on the field, not in clothes for a start, but you're looking like them, so I want you to feel good about that. But you still got to do the hard work.
Yep.
So along the way, I knew that there were a lot of Samoans playing for the New Zealand team. And Nigel and Joe Vangana.
Yeah.
Terry Susu. So there was a lot of guys. So when there's no reason why they can't play for Samoa, and I'm trying to tell them that we're not the Samoa of the past, of the Pacific Cup type era.
Yep.
So this is a properly run setup. There's money there. You'll be paid to play. You'll get your money. Yep. I'm in control of it. So no dramas. So I spoke to a couple of the players, and all I said to them was, I'm just letting you know that. I know you play for New Zealand. I know you currently your allegiance is with them, but you've got an option to come and play with us if you desire and if you want to play for your country.
Yep.
But that turning point where the players got together and really put some thought into it didn't happen until recently with the Tongan team.
Yeah.
We had the ability to do it then, but no one really wanted to run with it. And then the New Zealand Rugby League started giving me grief. Selwyn Pearson was the chairman at the time.
Right.
He was getting some shit stories written in the papers around me trying to poach players. I wasn't. I was just telling them, we're more professionally run now. You won't be ashamed to walk around in a Samoa on top. You're going to look the part. You're born in New Zealand, play for New Zealand. If you from Samoa, come and play for Samoa if you want.
Yeah.
So I was just giving them the option, and we had a bit of a to and fro about that. And I was just saying, I said to Sal, don't be short-sighted, mate, because all of these guys could play both, because the calendars aren't there for Polynesian competition.
No.
You'll get them, but when I need them, I'll need them, and this is development stuff that you'll benefit from too.
Yep.
They were too short-sighted to see that. Just saw me as an adversary.
Right.
And what they did do, it really swayed the guys that were available and showing interest, like Joe and Nigel.
Yeah.
They started their training camps 1 week or 2 weeks early. So that tied them up a lot earlier than I could, because I was still trying to set my schedule and all that, because I was a one-man band.
Right.
Against the New Zealand machine. So they started early, and I remember speaking to one of them. They said, "Oh, look, we're committed. We had to make a decision." And I said, "No, fair enough. Let's see if, hopefully see you in the final."
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was tricky. It was a lot of ground to manoeuvre, and the whole Polynesian Pacific Island thing wasn't being run right. So that's a whole another drama. I mean, when they saw sign with Super League,
yep,
the guys that ran Super League got the equation wrong, because the strength, this is going to be funny to say, but the strength of Polynesian football isn't in Samoa and Tonga, it was in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's right. And they were playing in Kiwi jerseys.
All the raw talent is in Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, New Guinea, but they're not developed because they don't play in a proper structure until they get to New Zealand or Australia.
Yeah.
So the money should have gone and been controlled from New Zealand. So from the New Zealand Samoan office, the Tongan Samoan office, and money from there should have gone back to the respective countries, not given to those countries.
Yeah.
Because no one saw any of it.
No.
Unfortunately. This is where giving money to the wrong people is a massive mistake. And I remember meeting with the International Federation and telling them, you guys are fucked up here. You haven't given the money to the right people, and you're not going to see anything for it.
Yeah.
And I know after they signed Samoa signed the Super League, and before I coached the World Cup in 2000, I coached a couple of national games.
Yeah.
They're just local Samoans against Fiji and Tonga.
Right.
And I went over there, and I was at the football field, and I'm meeting the people they're going to help. And like, where's our gear? And they just got $1 million or whatever from or a couple million. I'm not sure how much from Super League.
Yep.
They have 2 footballs, 3 witches' hats, and 4 tackling bags.
Wow. And
the tackling bags have been donated by Ruben Wiki.
So
I'm looking, I'm going, well, where's all the freaking money? Where is it all?
Yeah.
And I delve a bit further into it, and only half of the teams that were playing last year are playing this year, and I'm like, boys are mucked up here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know how I got onto that, but
it's okay.
It was an experience, and I'm glad I did it, because I wanted to put something back into the game after I left. So I did that through selecting, coaching Samoa, and also because I never got the chance to play for Samoa.
Yeah.
First time I had an opportunity, Manly wouldn't let me.
Okay.
I had a bit of an issue there. They wouldn't let me, but I had a bad knee and I needed an operation. So it's but I knew their attitude was bad around me doing that. So I probably never would have got to play if I was fine and all that. I regret not having a run with Samoa at least. That would have been special. But got to coach them. We got to quarterfinal against Australia. Australia went on to win the comp. So all I wanted was a score where we limited their scoring, because I said, boys, get the big picture here. If we lost 26-10 or 8, that's a freaking good result. And
that is a good result.
How good is that? I said, so we can lose and win the PR game in that, because we can use that to build on, and we can build a culture on it. We can build a team and a future of players looking back at their team going, I want to play for Samoa. Yeah. And we missed the opportunity. I think the score blew out the last 20 minutes like it was always going to. But it was still a quarterfinal spot. So pretty proud of that, with basically a reserve grade team. I think I had two guys from the first grade that played.
Yeah, and look where Samoa are now. They went to the World Cup final. That's unheard of. And it's because of guys like, I know that the next World Cup when the Kiwis won it, the likes of Nigel Vautin did play for Samoa. and like Frankie Pritchard, there was quite a lot of guys who kind of at the back end of their careers probably missing the Kiwis, but they were big enough names to actually go to Samoa and still look like a pretty solid team. But they actually tanked big time. They actually didn't do very well.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, when they were given the opportunity to go, when they were fit and young and all that, they chose not to. And they need to live with that and own it. They had the opportunity, but they were getting the money from where they were getting the money from.
Yeah.
Samoa looked like a second, sorry, all the countries, not just Samoa, Tom and Fiji, they all looked like they were all badly run. There was no money there to make it look professional. So the boys made a choice. No, we've got to stick with New Zealand. That was a conscious choice. Yeah, okay, if you want to win some points back, I don't really count them as points. You're at the back end of your career. You've done what you can for the Kiwis. You're on your way out of the Kiwis anyway. Yep. So this is now your plan B. Don't try and be that honourable around, I'm playing for my country.
Yeah.
You're going to play for your country when you're in your prime.
Yeah.
That way, you know.
Essentially what Jason Taumalolo did. And look what happened after that. I mean, Tonga actually did start building, and now Samoa's kind of, I guess Marty Tapau did the same thing. He sort of...
The equation in the islands was Samoa was always the strongest country, and Tonga was a close second.
Yeah.
Then somewhere along the line through David Fafita, I think it was David Fafita.
Fafita. Yep.
I don't know the other player that was instrumental, but they obviously got together and talked, and they went, let's do this thing for Tonga now. So that's where I'm a bit critical of some of the Samoan guys at the tail end of their career. These guys were still playing good football, and shit, they showed it in their results. And you know, the crowds that got on side with it all, it even made the Australians look up and go, shit, this is look what could happen if we let these guys in all their players.
Yep. Well, I went to that World Cup match in Hamilton where the Kiwis lost to Tonga, and you've never seen a crowd like that.
Yeah.
Like, so I lived in Hamilton, so it was literally down the road from my house. It was unbelievable. It was the most insane crowd I've ever been in. It was amazing, even to be on the losing side. It was amazing to be there. Like, I was almost happy for them.
Well, yeah, look, I was watching it, and I was going, shit, only good things can come of this.
Yeah.
If you think bigger about it, but I unfortunately Australia have only paid lip service to that side of things. I don't know how we needed the Polynesian game needs an injection of money, and it's not going to come from Sydney. And it probably shouldn't, because they've got their own competition to worry about.
Yep.
From the International Rugby League, I think that's where they failed from their visions and future planning point of view.
Yeah.
You need to develop the game in those countries. I mean, rugby's got a foothold in there, and rugby's done their rugby thing.
Yep.
But you know what? The rugby product's a little bit ordinary at the moment.
It is.
When you put it side by side to the game of league. I'm talking international rugby union versus club rugby league.
Yeah.
I think that distinction should be made, because I watch Test football now, and I'll only watch the All Blacks play because they play the best brand of football. Even when they lose, they're still trying to play rugby the way it should be.
Yeah.
Not the way the Northern Union want them to play.
Yeah.
Which is why the All Blacks have always been strong, and their brand is fantastic. However, the game and the rules and whatever is it's making the game unwatchable. If you put it side by side to the top NRL game of the weekend, it's no match.
It's not a match.
Every statistic you can put up around ball and play and whatever, it's really hard to compare the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a spectacle.
I moved to Christchurch a year ago, and I expected to walk into work and be absolutely dragged over the coals for being a league fan. Turns out everybody at work loves the rugby league, and they've all said, I just can't watch the rugby anymore. I just can't do it. It's
I've said,
boring. And that's just honest.
Rugby guys and players will watch league. Not many will watch rugby union.
No.
That's a bit of an indictment on their game. And unfortunately, they don't control the lawmakers.
No.
And another part of my career post-football was being on the NRL judiciary.
Oh, let's talk about that. Let's go.
And we had a conversation around tackling. Around 2002, perhaps. I think we had a pre-season meeting of the judiciary committee, so all the panel members, and everyone to do with that side of it. And our chairman was generally, the chairman of the judiciary was generally a district court judge or of that level.
Mm-hmm.
And rugby union had already gone to no tackling above here. And it was horrible, like watching it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the chairman brought that up, I think 2 years after rugby union had brought it up. And we were having a lot of, not controversy, but we had an increase in high tackles.
Yep.
So, the media are going off as ignorant as they are to create a headline around, shoulder charges and all this, and everyone's on Sonny Bill's case. Well, I don't know why he's the poster boy for bad tackling, but he brought it up at a meeting that should we consider going down this road too? And, footballers don't speak up at the best of times in a forum. So I just went, I do. If we change it, then we are rugby union. I mean, physicality for me is what defined both of our games in a way. So going back to the bare bones of some of the differences in rugby and league.
Yeah.
I liked very early on in the piece the honesty around, I'm going to run over the top of you. I'm going to try and run over the top of you. And on the other side of it, I'm going to try and tackle you as hard as I can and smash you as hard as I can. Legitimately.
Yeah.
Not with the head-eye tackle.
No,
and that's the challenge, and that's the duel that we have 6 times in a game before you kick the ball. I didn't like that you could have an option where you could just dive on the ground and lay that ball up as they have in rugby. I'm going way back, and rugby guys out there might be going, who's this freaking dinosaur?
All good.
But that's what I was thinking in the 70s and 80s. The late 70s, because I'm freaking old. That's how I perceived the manliness and toughness in sport was an honest contest between 2 guys, one going to run over the other one going, next mentality.
Yep.
Versus having an option to chicken out of that confrontation.
Yeah. As
I saw it, and it's pretty one-dimensional maybe of me, and laying that ball up, and then every guy, freaking 5 guys run over the top of you for what reason, I don't know, and then you get the ball and pass it out to do it all over again 100 times, and then get a penalty.
Yeah,
that wasn't it for me. That wasn't it for me. So
that's why I don't watch it.
We had this talk, and I said, look, that makes us a lot more like rugby, and we need to define. We've got a product, and we need to keep it. We need to keep what everyone believes our game is about. And the State of Origin's the example around the pinnacle of rugby league, because those battles were ferocious back in the 80s.
Yeah, tough
against what a lot of us didn't want to play rugby union for. So by going down this road, unless we are genuinely worried about concussions, and the conversation was too soon. I think rugby were way ahead of us, but rugby union had different influences as well than us. And I'll get into that in a bit. We didn't have that, and it's that sort of attitude that gives the rugby union guys the opportunity to go, you mungos, you guys are brain dead, or they've always derided our game on those things, which I thought were manly things. So I've never had a problem guy, with their rugby guy in any sort of confrontational way. I just didn't respect what they did back then.
Yeah.
And now it's just become something totally different, as has rugby league around. So yes, we stayed away from that. We kept on, but we had a penalty system on the judiciary. We can judge a tackle to be either intentional, reckless, or careless.
Yeah.
But we'll get you. The rules were there. The rules were there, even from a shoulder charge point of view.
Uh-huh.
If you got it wrong, then there was a penalty, and we then ascertained as ex-footballers on the panel whether he wasn't, and we knew the intentional ones from the careless ones to the reckless. We played the game, and you had to have that pedigree or that experience to differentiate between the two and come up with a decent decision. And I can't ever say on any panel, I was on that panel for 15 years.
Wow.
Ever regretted a decision. The only decisions I've fought with were when we put a guy out of the grand final.
Right.
Or we got into trouble with a point system where I think, and it was for an origin, where Glenn Lazarus up one year, we gave him 99 points, which meant he could play the origin. And our warning was in the points. I think the system was 100 points, which was a game. So we gave him, he had the discretion to do that. We had some older guys on that panel who were very old school, and they didn't believe that the indiscretion was worth missing the State of Origin game because they held it so high.
Right.
However, you've got to be impartial to what the letter of the law is and the black and white of it. And it was one of my other panel members that helped me with that conundrum because I was part of the panel that gave him 99.
Right.
The reasoning was, well, if he does one thing wrong, you know, if he trips somebody up, he's going to miss his next game.
Yeah.
And he said, look, we've got to let the system work for itself. We're not the ones that have committed the crime. They do. They know what they're up for. And this is why it was such a good system. You knew what you potentially get. The system before that, you go in and it was just a lottery.
Yeah.
The chairman made up his decision on the night and gave you whatever he felt like on the night. Whereas if you do this is what you're going to be penalised. You can defend it and get a discount, or you'll get the full loading and you'll cop the full brunt of it. So one of my mates on there said, Mel Cochran, who I played with Manly, he said, let the system take care of itself. We're only here to adjudicate on the guilt or the innocence, and then the grading. If it's 100 points, then it's 100 points.
Yep.
So that you know made me feel a lot better about it. But I know from the Kiwi point of view, there was a lot of suspicion around the judiciary. I think the Kiwis always thought they were getting hard done by.
Yeah.
I think what we have the benefit of, and what a lot of people in public bars, the experts in a pub don't get, is we see every angle and every slow-mo there is available. We can watch it for an hour or two if we want. Mm-hmm. We also have the player testimony, who's defended himself, and the guy that got hurt and his take on. So we have a whole lot more at our disposal to make a decision out of, rather than being a half-drunk 2-second expert on a video play in your local pub.
Lots of them out there, mate.
Lots. And, you know, I can honestly say I've never been uncomfortable with the decision, especially around the Warriors. And after hearing the Warriors, you know, a lot of supporters going, you know, the system's wrong and whatever. Yeah. I think there was only one that I questioned. I wasn't on it, and it was I think Ali Lautiti might have been put out of a test match.
Right.
And I thought it was an each-way bet, but as I came to learn, I can't second guess. If I'm not on the panel, because we all got rotated and had different turns, I'm not going to second guess the guys that had all the evidence. I don't. I can only. It's not fair for me to just judge on what I see on the video screen.
Yeah.
Or on the TV replay. So at the end of the day, I thought it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
The judiciary's never discriminated against the Warriors. So it's official. Anyway.
It was fun.
Well, I was there anyway.
There was one tackle last season that got up my grill that I want to ask you about. Seeing as you've got all the expertise, it was Felice Kafusi when he tackled Jackson Hastings against Newcastle, playing for the Dolphins, right? Now he had to commit to the tackle, and he went in to make the tackle, but then Jackson Hastings passed the ball, and he literally had no opportunity to pull out of the tackle. And because it's a halfback, and they you know, the team likes to protect halfbacks, he got suspended for like 3 weeks, but he couldn't really pull out of the tackle because he committed to it. He had like, you know, a fraction of a second, you know what I mean? And he got suspended. And then I think it was Joseph Suaalii, he did something of similar nature and got off.
Yeah.
And it was because Kafusi, he had been flattening people all season and got suspended a few times. How does that all work? And I don't know if you know the tackle I'm talking about, but what's your take on that sort of thing?
Look, I have a vague recollection. My biggest problem with the judiciary and how he ran it was we were finding guys guilty or not guilty of slow motion replays.
Yes.
The game isn't played in slow motion. I don't think enough has been put on the fact that that's all well and good to be this judgmental and apply all these rules to something that happens in 0.1 of a second.
Yeah.
You tell me if you could have done that in the same position, you know, in real time.
Yeah.
So I think the slow-mo replay hasn't helped. You need it for points of contact and things like that. But I wonder out loud whether there are certain things where you just do it at full speed and judge the tackle on full speed, because there have been too many times, and that's an example,
Yeah.
We're far too late. And you've got to allow the footballers on the panel who've all been there and done it. We've all done late tackles.
Yeah.
We've all done it on purpose or by accident. We know the difference.
Yeah.
You've got to defer to that because as opposed to a panel of fans or a panel of lawyers, let the person that's been there adjudicate, and it'll even out over the course.
Yeah.
So with things like that, I find it hard because, like you said, there's an immediate comparison not long after. And that's the hard part, is the consistency.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part for the judiciary because you look at everything, every incident individually.
Yes.
But there has to be a commonality around them. And that's probably that was the most difficult part, was finding that the grading was right.
Yep.
You know, is this a 3 or a 4? And look, we're not scientists either. You know, it's not a perfect system. It's not run by perfect people. We're doing our best.
Yep.
Honestly, if you're doing it honestly, then over the stretch, everyone will get the same treatment. But it stands out, and I think we ask these questions now because the game is so inconsistent. The refereeing's the worst I've ever seen it.
Really? Wow.
It raises a lot more questions. To be this bad, it makes me suspicious with the amount of betting in the game now.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's a new angle. Look, it happens in sport all around the world and in much bigger countries in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
When you let betting into a sport, funny things happen.
Yeah.
Funny things happen, and you know, with the exotic, you can have exotic bets, and you have all different types of bets now. I wouldn't write it off, but the refereeing has been terrible for a long, long time.
Wow.
For me, it's the biggest blight in our game. The bunker and the refereeing is terrible.
Yeah.
It's actually doing our game more harm than good.
Yeah.
Because it's making it so inconsistent.
Oh, the one thing I find that frustrates me, I've said it a couple of times on these podcasts, is when a try's awarded, but then you don't get that moment to celebrate anymore because you have to confirm it after the referee's already blown the whistle, pointing to the spot. I like the idea of just either go upstairs if you're not sure, because it's like, okay, there's still a chance we're going to get this try. We haven't celebrated it yet because he hasn't pointed to the spot. But then they point to the spot and then it goes upstairs after they're like ready to kick the goal. What's your thoughts on that? I want to know desperately.
How much do we let technology get into our game? I reckon that if we all agreed on one thing, then we all have to live by the same rule. So we could go back and go, let's let the referee, the on-field referee, be the sole arbiter of everything that happens on the field. Yep. So if he sees it as a try, it's a try. If he doesn't see it as a try, it's not a try. The odds will even out along the way. You're going to get the rough end of it sometimes. You'll get the good end of it in other times. But he's being honest. Why don't we just leave it there? Let's not complicate it further.
Yeah.
By bringing other people into it and making this more than what it needs to be.
Yeah.
We had a referee back in my day called Bill Harrigan. I never liked him.
Oh, Bill Harrigan. Yeah, he was a big name for ages.
He at least had the balls to make a decision.
Yep.
And you know what? He was an arrogant prick and he loved himself. But as a referee, that's all you want. He'd make mistakes, but they would even out over the time. And not
I think so.
Complained about him other than he thought he was bigger than the players. That's what I think of him anyway. And everything was fine because he was consistent both ways. As I alluded to before, when things are happening that it just, ridiculous. Everybody can see it's a try and they come up with a no try. Like, well, where did that come from? And why? When it becomes ridiculous like that, you've got to look to other factors.
Yep.
And it worries me that the more people that we put in that decision-making process, the more it can be corrupted.
Yeah.
In as far as, why are 3 people making a decision? Why have we got the bunker talking to referees these days? What's that about?
Yeah.
It opens up a whole can of worms around how the game's refereed these days. But I'm not a fan of the bunker. I think it should be dealt with on the field. And you're right. If I scored the winning try in a grand final, it's the hardest grand final I ever played in my life. 100,000 people are cheering their heads off.
You want that moment.
Remind me, my little moment.
Yeah.
Well, freaking 5-minute review that says it's a try anyway. You've just taken all that away.
You take it away, even if it is a try. Exactly. Thank you.
You've taken it out of the crowd. You've just taken the moment that people go for these games, the big moment.
Yeah.
Taken that away. And, but this is the entertainment industry. That's your entertainment right there, not in a bunker.
Not in a bunker.
Where half the time they get wrong. So, yeah.
I was actually starting to lose my passion for the NRL a couple of years ago. I was just so over all the rule changes and in particular when they brought that one, and I really struggled to watch the game for like 2021 and 2022. I really struggled when they brought all that in.
I don't understand why they've tried to change. It was a pretty basic game, as the rugby guys will argue. It's a pretty simple game to play, and it was.
Yeah.
And that was the honesty of our game. It was a simple game to play. But we've changed. I don't understand to what end they're changing rules from. What has the development that's come into a game that has made it the shit fight that it is now, in a lot of respects, is when Melbourne came into the competition.
Right.
It's an NRL team that were massively boosted by the NRL down in Melbourne. They wanted to have a presence, and they got a lot of support. And there were a lot of clubs doing it tough. And this new club come in, and I get they're trying to break into new territory and make the game national. That's good. There are no problems with that. But Melbourne, the one thing the Melbourne organisation did was they really looked at our game and looked for the weaknesses in our game to gain advantages. So Chris Anderson was the first coach of the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
And he looked at the play the ball. They went, the play the ball is the area for gain in our game. So if we dominate the play the ball, we've got a good chance of winning. So they looked at it from an attacking point of view. So they came up with a play where they would dive at the legs. And that was all around getting a quick play the ball.
Yep.
Because what's not understood in our game is how those milliseconds in a tackle save your defending team from the aerobic side of getting up and back 10 metres. 50 metres a time.
Oh, it must be tough.
100 times a game. So if you can help that along, it's a big benefit because you're not trying to defend as you're on your back foot. You're actually, in a negative sense, you're in a positive sense going forward. So they looked at the play the ball. And at the judiciary level, we ruled it out because a lot of them were voluntary tackles.
Right.
And it was dangerous because they were diving at knees. It was all about the catch term at the time was to land on your elbows and knees to get a good play the ball.
Yep.
But once we outlawed that, and so you can't do it, and that was a good move for the game. But Craig Bellamy came in after that and looked at it from the other side and went, okay, we're going to look at the play the ball from the defensive side of it. So how do we slow up the play the ball? Okay. This thing called jiu-jitsu, wrestling. Let's manipulate the neck, because once we manipulate the neck in the tackle, we control the whole body.
Yeah.
So they developed that into the chicken wing and all of these moves where we've got the increase in injuries from this style of tackling. If anybody in the game was smart enough, they'll go, this is not a good look for our game, because our game was spectacular.
Yeah.
When we had shoulder charges and
I miss it so much.
Steve Maddai cleaning somebody.
I was just going to say Steve Maddai, Darrell Williams. That's what our
game was about. Sonny Bill should never have been treated the way he was around the shoulder charge, because it was exciting. The whole crowd went up.
Loved it.
If you got it wrong, then the penalties were there to take care of that.
Yep, fair enough.
The other part to a shoulder charge is quite often it's a defensive mechanism, because you go into a tackle and it's all around time. And if you get it wrong, the automatic instinct is to bring your arm up across your shoulder to protect your sternum. Yeah. It's a defensive thing, because quite often with the players' athleticism now and their ability to step, they step at the last minute now and throws you right up. So that's when you get it wrong or you hurt yourself. So quite often you're going in for a big hit and then you put your arm up and go, shit, this isn't going to work out the way I thought. But I'm going to come out the least hurt. So, the tough, that was the contact side of our sport, which was great. We've now turned it into an arm wrestle where the secret to playing our game now is to defend by taking as much time and as many players to slow up a player. This is where we get these post-contact bullshit meters from.
Yep.
Guys are getting points for running backwards 10 meters with 3 guys hanging off them.
Yeah.
Or to let your defensive line get back in position. Well, it's ugly. And it's created a lot of bad things in our game, a lot of bad injuries through the chicken wing, the pressure on the back of the neck.
Yep.
But we've also given the players room to play up to these potential injuries too. Like half the neck compression stuff is bullshit.
Yeah.
And the referees are refereeing so bad, they'll just blow the whistle at anything now.
Yeah.
So the games, I'm not enjoying the game as much because of the way it's been played. The guys are stronger, fitter, and faster, and the skill that they have is unbelievable. So I really appreciate that. But the fundamental part of the game around the body contact, we've gotten so far away from it now.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch.
Yep, I agree with everything you're saying. So there was a time where you were part of the Kiwis and Wayne Bennett were part of the Kiwis at the same time. We won the World Cup. But I've got a question that is, and then we're in the situation right now where we've just lost the Kiwi coach. He was an Australian. What's your views on having an Australian as the leader of New Zealand? Is that better for our players to learn off an Australian, or is it better to have a Kiwi coach regardless? And like, what was Wayne Bennett's impact on the side?
Well, my thoughts were we need to win and lose on our own. So Kiwi coach to coach the Kiwis, and if we're not good enough, we're not good enough. What do we do to get better? Or there's the scenario where if you can't beat them, join them.
Yep.
So the best coaches are Australian. Let's suck what we can out of them, but we have to learn something from them. So with Wayne, Wayne had the runs on the board. He was successful with the Broncos. He had a great resume and he was good with players. And I think in the New Zealand context, we've needed a lot more communication with our players. And the Australians can handle the black and white of criticism. And that's what I saw as a massive difference in the Australian mentality to the Kiwi mentality was the Australians called it like it was. And if you didn't like it, then toughen up about a cake. Whereas the Kiwis showed too much sensitivity around being criticised.
Right.
And that soft approach is a weakness. And those are the weaknesses that show out that ultimately are losses on the field.
Right.
One of the ingredients to it. With Wayne Bennett, he had the not much of a personality sometimes, but enough because he can resonate with a player. Right. Just say the right words because he's got a wealth of experience and he knows the right words to use. So I was suspicious when he came in because I was a selector then. And I'm like, shit, you've coached Origin, you've coached Australia against us, and you're calling us every name under the sun in the moment of combat when you're trying to beat us.
Yeah.
Now you're one of us. And I'm going, is that a bit short-sighted of us where, I don't want ever the Australians to go, well, you only won because you had an Australian coach.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be 100% key.
Damn right.
And hopefully it gets to that. We're good enough to be that.
Yep.
But at the moment, we don't. We clearly haven't had the right depth in New Zealand around the coaching side. We've tried local guys. Unfortunately, they haven't been successful at the Warriors level, and therefore how can you be successful at the New Zealand level?
Yep.
And I also knew, and having been in some of those Kiwi teams, you need the truth. You need the hard, honest truth. It's a man's game. You got to man up when you fuck it up. So admit to it, own it, and get on with it and be better. So I think Wayne brought that to the table, and he observed it pretty quickly. And it was after a centennial test. And I spoke to him after the game, and I only spoke to him because I wanted to see where his head was and whether he was truly one of us, so to speak. So we'd lost the centennial game. It was there for us to win, and we were in the game.
Yeah.
But again, we've been in so many games, and we've still lost them. So it was the same old freaking trend.
Yep.
Stephen Kearney was the coach at the time, and the Australians were getting the medal for winning the game. We were getting nothing. Our guys were just hanging around out there. He had a real weird stare on him, so I left him alone. Then went up and spoke to him, and he said, "Can you get our guys? And what the fuck are they doing out there hanging around behind the Aussies? We're not getting anything. Get our boys in."
Yep.
I went straight away. That's a buy-in for me.
Yep.
Like the Australians. So I did that, came back, and he goes, "What do you think?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What do you think of that game? Where do you think we aren't getting it right?" I said, "Well, you'll see in the changing room." And he looked at me strangely and he said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, we're not Australian, mate. We've got a lot of guys that play in the Australian comp, and they're better for playing the comp because they've learned how to be men and play and handle the criticism." I said, "They'll be let down that lightly in the changing room, that they won't feel the sting of losing." It was a significant game. It was a centenary test.
That's huge. Like,
yeah, it's 100 years of freaking rugby.
Exactly.
That's where you go to war.
Yeah.
You know? I said it's going to be too nice, and no one's going to be really poked in the stomach or in the chest, and go, that's not good enough. It's going to be, oh well, we'll get them next time.
Right.
So I went in, and Steve's a nice guy and all that. As one person said to me when I was a selector and said, "We're looking for candidates to coach," and I said, "How about Stephen Kearney? At least he's an assistant coach to Craig Bellamy.
Yeah.
And they're in a good setup, they're successful." And this person quite wisely said back to me, he said, "Sometimes you're only ever an assistant coach."
Right.
And I got nothing against Steve. I'm only going on his results with New Zealand. That's my only platform. I think he's a great guy. Yep. It's the only platform I can judge him on. And so the record wasn't there. And so coming back to his coaching style, it therefore wasn't what it needed to be for the type of team that we had. It wasn't an Australian team, it's a New Zealand team with a lot of cultural stuff in it. And you've got to find the right mix. And how Webster's done that with the Warriors, I don't know, but good on him.
Yeah, amazing result.
So Wayne got in there and stood behind Steve. Steve sat everybody down. That's the new style now, is everyone to sit down and listen to the teacher. And there were a few ex-Kiwis up the back, like Olsen and Kurt, Dean Bell, myself, and there was someone else up there. I said, "Watch this, boys." So Steve did exactly what I thought he'd do. He let them all down pretty softly, and we'll get them next time.
Yeah.
20 minutes of that game, we were poor, but I'm like, fuck me, this isn't under 15s or under 12s. This is a bunch of men that they need the Australian style of pat you on the back and you've done well, or kick you in the ass for you've done wrong. It's the truth and honesty around that. So he turned around to Wayne and said, "Wayne, what have you got to say?" Wayne just ripped him a new one and basically said, "That's the problem with you kids. See, you take these things too lightly. So you just went out to battle and you're happy coming second. I don't see the scars from it. I don't see anybody unhappy in here. I don't see anybody with their head down, embarrassed about their performance." And he really gave them the rocket. Yeah. Significant for me was all the guys with me, all the ex-Kiwis, all went, "About time somebody said it." So it's not just me thinking this. Yeah. We all knew what needed to be done because we've been there, done it. And that was the kit that transformed that team because it mentally transformed them. There were things that he would have done over the training sessions in the past leading up to all their future games. But what it did, and I've said this before, it didn't make them stronger, fitter and faster overnight, but it made them understand mentally what it took to win a game. Yeah. There's no soft way about winning a game. You've got to apply yourself to the best of your ability. So for us, it became, how long are we going to hang in the arm wrestle? Because for so many years, we'd lost by half-time, or typically, it's a close game. Australia will score after half-time and just run away with the game. Yep. Like the last 10 minutes, don't even worry about it, the game's over. Then we find ourselves in positions where we're there right to the end. And I've pointed this out before. I think it was in Brisbane. We're in the arm wrestle, and it's 5 minutes to go or so. We kick the ball downfield, and Billy Slater's the fullback, and he's in a panic because the Australians are still fighting to win the game. It was still a try difference. Yeah. But he instead of letting the ball go out, which he normally would have because they would have comfortably been in front by then, he backs it back in because he knows they need more points to secure a victory. Yep. I think Benji comes through, gets the ball. Yeah.
Great try.
The boys come in after that game, after the celebration, so you could just see the mental shift in about, hey, We just proved it, or Wayne just proved it to us,
Yeah.
and we just proved it to ourselves that we didn't go away. We hung around for the whole test, and we were there. And the one thing that we've done to Australia that we've never done before is we made them panic.
Yeah.
We've never had to panic before. So that's how we need to be. And
Yeah.
we had our most successful period after that.
Yeah.
I think we won the World Cup, we won the Four Nations.
Four Nations, yeah.
Four Nations. And that was
in the last minute, you know.
We were there.
Did Nathan Feen get the try after a big break from Jason Nightingale? Yeah.
There was that too, yeah. I'm a bit dodgy on it, but there was some
standout moment. Nathan Feen got the try right at the end. That was great. Yeah.
Just the fact that we're there to put pressure, and someone like Billy Slater, who was a seasoned fullback from the best player, we had him in a panic, just showed that he was panicking for a reason. And quite right, so because we ended up beating him. So that was the significance I saw of Wayne Bennett's contribution. So perhaps until we're good enough, and you know what we should be looking at, we should be pushing for guys like Christian Wolf to get a gig over here. To one of the struggling clubs, if he had a manager that can sell him properly, then he could become that Kiwi coach that we need.
Yeah.
With not England. England's not the place for it. No. England's not the pinnacle of rugby league from a attack and defence point of view. It's always been Australia. So come and learn from the best. And we need to find these guys and get them into the system, even if it's coaching one grade below. The standard is still good.
Yep.
And, you know, it's from where the Websters have come from. They've been through the system.
Yes.
So that's where we lack at the moment. And finding a replacement for Maguire, I'm not sure which way the New Zealand Rugby League will go there.
Yeah.
It's a mystery with how they do things anyway.
Do you think we've actually bridged that gap between Australia and New Zealand? Because that semi-final, we got smoked. And then we came out and won the final in the Pacific Championship. It's like chalk and cheese from one week to the next. Like, I would say no.
Yeah, I would say no because it was chalk and cheese. How can you come up? Even Australia on their worst day, you know, the time they lost was only 13-6. It wasn't 26-0 or something like that. They were still in the arm wrestle. They were still there to win the game.
Yeah.
To come up with a loss that bad and then to come back, what was the big difference in between?
Yeah, that's what I want.
That turned it around. And it'd be good to be a fly on the wall to see what that magic potion was, because that was just a tale of two games. Like, one was shit and one was amazing.
Do you think Australia just totally took New Zealand lightly in that final because they'd smashed them the week before?
Look, there's got to be that feeling. There's got to be that feeling of we've been there, done that before.
Yeah.
And that's the trap. And I think Australia did that in '87. They went, we just have to turn up and we'll win.
Yeah.
And I think that complacency probably didn't help them. But, you know, let's give it to the Kiwis. They turned around.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've got to give them credit for turning around from such a big loss. And getting there, but what did that big turnaround consist of? It's
very interesting. Now I want to change the subject just for a little bit. There's a match that is very dear to my heart. Actually, it was the very first match played outside of Australia in the Winfield Cup, which is 1992, Carlaw Park. You played in it against Newcastle and scored a phenomenal try right on half time, where Manly threw the ball around left, right, and centre, and then you hit this beautiful short ball. Cut straight through the middle, scored next to the right hand, post. But then in the second half, a little bit of forward pass gate going on here. Tony King throws the pass to Ashley Gordon. You guys win in the dying seconds. Sorry, you lose in the dying seconds of the match.
Yeah, that was terrible. You can see on the video replay, the linesman is waving it forward, and the referee ignores him. His flag is going up and down.
Yeah.
And the referees just ignored it. I'm like, what the hell? Like, Sam Stewart and Sam was the captain of the no, I don't think he was captain then, but he was with the Newcastle team. So I don't think he played. I think he might have been injured. But we went over early to do some promo for that guy. Right. And the whole time I'm giving it to him because we were New Zealand's team.
Yeah, you were. That's right.
We had the Iros, Rajiv, Shelford, Gene Army.
My older brother, just quickly, my oldest brother, Andrew, I'll never forget, because I was only really young then. You know, you got to remember, I was born in '84. So, you know, I was 8. So I remember him saying, oh, you'll want to watch this because this is like real football, real rugby league, you know, because he wasn't a union boy. He had the same Manly jersey you were wearing in that game. Yeah, he got it given to him by, I can't remember who he got it from, but it was for a birthday present because he loved Manly. Yeah, that was his team. So yeah, carry on.
And we had a bar. We had a bar in Auckland that supported us. That was even better.
Yeah,
we all ended up there after the game. But it was a big occasion. It was me coming home. My only sad part was my dad wasn't there. My dad had died 2 years earlier, way too young, and that would have been a good moment for me and him if he was there to see. It was a great moment in the game because we had a lot of support, and the Kiwis were supporting us. That Auckland crowd was supporting us a lot. And it was right on half time, so it was a bit of a nothing play. And Tony ran it in. I was actually there at fullback, and I remember I've written it off. Like he's going to get tackled, and we'll go in for half time.
Yeah.
Anyway, they keep the ball alive, and I was playing fullback. So yeah, Richie was hurt. So I thought I'll just follow along and see what happens. And then a gap opened, and I had a bit of a go. And Cliffy got it to me a lot later than it looks, so I almost dropped it. I caught it on my hip and I come. I'm just slower. I had the world's slowest fullback trying to chase me down. So, that was quite satisfying. I come up with a good kick for a try in the second half for our winger, which was pretty cool. And I had a disallowed try as well. I kicked the bomb. Cliffy and I were the first ones to it. And I elbowed him out of the way, caught it, and went over. I pushed him into one of their players, so it was disallowed.
Oh, right.
So that was all my glory for the night gone.
Yeah.
It's funny because in the lead up to that game, Graham Lowe, we got over there, and Graham was wary of me and Tony Ira because we didn't mind a couple of quiet drinks.
Yep.
And he stressed 1,000 times, there's a curfew on tonight, boys. You can't be up past 10 or 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think this was 2. I don't think it was the night before the game. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I'm that irresponsible, although
it's questionable.
It's very true. I think it might have been 2 nights before the game. Anyway, and we'd only been there for a day, and amongst us Kiwis, we're seeing family, all of our mates putting pressure on us to go and have a beer and all that. And I'm like, fucking hell, boys, we're here to play. We can't be on it. But Tony and I are a bit more social than that. So we got to a pub. We're staying in a hotel in the city, and then we go to a pub just up behind Carlow Park called the Oakham Whale on Parnell Rise. And we're in there, and it's really funny. As we walk in, there was a one-man guitar player, and it was an old Kiwi legend. I don't know if the name Bunny Walters means anything. I'm not sure if it was him or whether he was still alive, but it was an old, well-known musician.
Right.
On the way in, we've been over in Australia for a couple of years. He gives us the Kiwi, how you going?
Yeah.
We give him the eyebrow treatment back. And we're just drinking on our own and a few people. And it gets a bit later and all the workers have knocked off work, so everyone's out for a drink. It might have been Friday night and we played on the Sunday.
Right.
So we were out and we told all the other boys where we'd be. So they all told in, and Tony and I well and truly on it by this stage, and all the locals are with us. Hey, we're coming to the game, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So Richie comes in at one stage and he looks at his watch and he goes, shit, we're going to be back for the curfew. So he goes, and half the team came through, bravely had one beer, and they went, shit, curfew, we got to go. Yeah. It's too early, boys. What are you going to do? So we're going to have dinner and just hang around the dining room.
Yeah.
So it sucks to be you. So Tony and I stay on, and the locals buy us a carton and sort of put it down at our feet. We're sort of mindful of the time, but we're sort of like, oh, shit, we've got 2 days to sober up and play this game. So we're down towards the back of the bar, and one of the locals we're talking to goes, hey, your whole coaching staff just walked in. So we turn it around. There's Lowy and all the trainers and the minister. And we're like, shit. So we hide behind a pole. We're past curfew. So we're hiding behind this pole. We're going, shh, don't say anything. Anyway, the guy on the guitar finishes the song. And he gets up and goes, I'd just like to welcome Graham Lowe and all the guys from Manly, come to the establishment and good luck in their game on the weekend.
Yeah.
And Darrell and Tony up the back. All you see is Loey's head come up and he's turning around and we're hiding behind this ball, telling everyone to shut up. So we were right on the suit back then. And anyway, he sits down, we sneak out the back door and go back to the hotel, continue drinking, and we play the game. But Loey was oblivious to all of that.
Oh, that's brilliant, mate. That's brilliant. So just at the end of your playing career, you actually went to Parramatta Eels and had about 5 or so games there. How did that all come about? Why did you leave Manly for a start, and then how did you end up at Parramatta?
Yeah, the Manly thing was quite. It wasn't a good experience leaving because of the way I was told to leave. This was in 1993 was my last year at Manly, and I'd had 6 knee operations by then, 4 reconstructions. I didn't have a medial ligament in my left leg. They tried to put a synthetic one in and they couldn't put it in the right place, so it was a waste of time. So I've been bone on bone for a long time. A lot of trainers were saying, you just look like you're in pain. And I was. But I just, had that mentality to keep soldiering on.
Yeah.
So I played the first part of the game and Graham Lay gets sick and Bob Vautin comes back to coach us. And I think Bozo went straight into future planning. To make a decision to come back out of retirement for coaching wouldn't have been a light decision, and he's obviously made it with a perception of being around for the next 5 or 6 years. And for Bozo, it could have been he wrote his own checks back then. Could have been for as long as he wanted because he had that much ball, and he was a good coach.
Yep.
So I was on the way out, and they'd bought quite a few centres over the years to cover for me, but I was always okay enough to come back and get my position back after every freaking knee reconstruction.
Yep.
And then I was starting to get lots of other broken thumbs and all that, which you just played on with. You just did what you did. That's probably something else I discovered in the game was, and I had a shocking dad. He had no tolerance for that, and it was really hard, old school.
Yeah.
And he said, a lot of tough guys play the game, but even the tough guys, everybody knows they've got injuries, and they play with injuries because they tell everyone they've got injuries. The real tough guys are the guys that don't tell anybody they've got injuries.
Right.
And that's just something I took on board. So no one knew how bad I was. No one knew when I was playing with broken thumbs and all of that. Well, I'm not the only one, but it really did affect my career. And I was probably lying to myself. I should have taken a year off and put the work I needed to. And by this stage, I wasn't probably rehabbing as well as I should. I was being a bit lazy, so I've got myself to blame for that.
Right.
In the last year, I got married, and life was slowly changing. Babies were on the way, and we were talking about it. So Bozo didn't really have plans for me, so I played half the year in first grade and half the year in reserve grade, but I'd be on the bench for first grade.
Yep.
And then I couldn't even get off the bench. And I remember saying in the semi-final, I couldn't even get off the bench, and I could have helped, because they lost the semi-final. And I had a lot of flexibility. I could have played in the forwards. I played a couple of games, second row a lot.
Yep.
And they didn't even put me on. I can't even get a run. The next training session, I go out for the reserve grade 10, so the Tuesday after, and the reserve grade coach is standing there. And as I walked past him on the field, and our reserve grade was also in the semis.
Right.
So I didn't even get a run in the reserve grade team, and then I didn't get on for the first grade. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? We've only got 2 games at the most left in the club. So I couldn't get on. As I walked past him, he just said, "You're not required."
Oh, really?
I walked backwards and said, "What did you say?" I thought this guy was a friend.
Yeah.
And I haven't forgiven him, and I never will. So he didn't need to address me the way he did. We were friends. He said, "Hey, look, you're not part of the plans. We're not putting you on. You're not even giving a run. So look, maybe it's." He just said, "You're not required." When I asked him to clarify, I said, "What do you mean by that?" He just said, "You're not required." And the way he looked down at me, I just walked away. I walked back in the changing rooms. And I sat there going, is that it? Is it all over? And the first grade team members started walking in to get ready for their session, and they were saying, what are you doing? I said, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's all over.
Oh, yeah.
They were a little bit mystified, and they didn't ask too many more questions. So I got up and walked out, and that was it.
Wow.
For a club that I aspired to play for from such a young age.
Broke your body for them.
Broke my body for.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I wasn't looking for any handouts, but it didn't need to be like that.
There's a level of diplomacy that's needed.
Oh,
you know, you put your body on the line for the jersey.
Football, it's not politics, you know.
Yeah.
You know, your time's up there. You know, good. I would have copped that because it would have been almost true.
For sure.
So I'm there, and I'm like, what the hell? I knew. I planned the next 3 years. You know, I'm going to be planning my exit strategy and my life after football. But this came way before then. Even as bad as my knees were, I knew I had another couple of years in me.
Right.
And it was the time to start thinking about my future and all that. So when that happened, I had no plans at all.
Right.
So I had an opportunity a long way to go to England and play for St Helens, because my old Mount Albert coach, Mike McLennan, was coaching there.
Oh, right.
And he'd actually turned them around because Wigan were the dominant team in England.
Yes.
The Iro brothers played, and Adrian Shelford played for them, and they won everything. And then he got St Helens up, and he'd taken Shane Cooper from Mount Albert, who was a genius.
Right.
Probably should have played a lot more test football than he did. Took him over, and it was a good team to play for, but the deal fell over at the last minute. He had a really big board that he had to convince. I think they overlooked me for another guy they thought was the next Martin Afire. Martin Afire played for Wigan. He was a black winger.
I remember him. He's great.
So they thought they'd found the next one.
Yeah.
So they put their money into him. There was nothing left for me. And the guy turned out to be a turkey. But I had to go somewhere else. And I was sitting around, and it was my wife who rang a friend who got me onto a player manager, because I'd never had a player manager before.
Right.
And he got me the worst deal of all time at Parramatta.
Oh, God.
But I had nothing else to go to.
Right.
To go out there. I live in Manly. It's a massive drive to the other part of town. I was hating every minute of it. And Parramatta were going through their transition.
Yeah.
They'd gone through the glory days in the 80s, and they were a great outfit. They had a good setup. All of that was fine. But they had a team that weren't up to winning first grade games. And they had an ex-player as a coach. Nice guy. Couldn't coach for shit. So I go there, and it's just new surroundings. They were mad trainers, and I'm not a trainer by this stage. I'm just getting by. So budging didn't help much. So they're all talking, no walk. They train their asses off and just didn't produce anything. And the contrast I had to the best coaches in the world, and gone to the worst coaches in the world. And I took my knee injuries over, and they identified them pretty quickly and said, you might do a medical. So their physio gets me to do some x-rays. And he saw my legs, and he went, what have you done here? And I told him. He went, what the hell are you walking? And I said, mate, I've got a staple coming out of my knee. And it's like, it's right there at the surface. And every time someone touches it, I feel like I've been stabbed.
Oh, wow.
He goes, that's what's holding in your cruciate ligament. So, sorry, that's what's holding in. The way they did my operations, my iliotibial bands, where it attaches to the side of the knee, they cut them off, pulled them around the knee, and stapled them back in.
Oh, really?
And the theory to this was to give me a bit more rotational stability.
Okay.
Especially my left one, because I had no medial. But what it did, it made me so tight. At that moment, over 2 years, 88 and 89, I had decent speed before then. I lost it all because I was too tight.
Right.
Tight. So anyway, I tell him about the stable. I said, mate, it's giving me grief. So he said, you need to get that taken out before you play. So I had a delayed start to the season. Yep. I'm going along watching the game, and I'm going, oh my God, this team is the worst team in the world.
They didn't do well that season.
They didn't do well.
I think they won about 7 games.
Yeah. And before my first game, my son's born. So the morning, it was a night game, Friday night game, something like that. And that morning, my son's born. So I'm all day at hospital. My wife says, look, go and play your game.
You're right.
Away. I'm not going anywhere. See you back here in hospital. So on my drive out there, my whole world changed.
Yeah.
My focus on life, the whole bit, and I'm with the club that I didn't Like,
Yep.
I don't want to knock Parramatta; they're a great and proud club.
Yep.
But that time was bad. So I get there, play a game in reserve grade. Then the coach puts me in first grade at 5'8".
Okay.
It's the one position I never played, and I line up against Laurie Daly,
Oh my
like some guys that know how to play, and I look stupid. And I ended up playing out the year in reserve grade. I was just hating it, and I wasn't even getting paid that well. Then I back up in '94, and the first run, I come last. It's like 40 degrees. We do a 5 mile time trial on a bloody rock hard oval. I come in around the last guys, and the coach comes up to me and he goes, "You didn't do too well in that run." So, well, I haven't trained. This is pre-season. I'm getting fit now.
Yep.
And I was just hoping that he was going to give me that neutral old guy. You're on your way out. I'll look after you a little bit. Then he looked at me and went, "You look like you're in pain." And I wasn't really. I couldn't hide it anymore.
Right.
And then he said to me, "Sometimes you're a long time retired."
Yeah.
And I never went back. So I don't go back. And that's the end of it. And then, hey presto, Super League comes out 3 years later.
Yeah.
And I could have been in amongst it with that. I actually had an offer to go back, but it was a pretty wealthy businessman was trying to help West out.
Right.
John Singleton, I met him at a lunch. He doesn't mind a beer, and I had a few, and he had a few. Then we had a whole lot.
Yep.
He already made the offer before we got on. And he goes, "Look, I know you're a bit older, but you could be that old head.
Yeah.
Build not the team around, but you can be one of the guys that gives us a solid direction." And the money was amazing. It was more than anything I'd earned, because the Super League money at the time was crazy. I looked at him and said, "Geez, I'd love it. I need a bit of training, but I couldn't do it to you. I'm not the guy."
Yeah.
I said, "I haven't got it in me. I don't want to let myself down. I don't want to let you down.
Yeah.
I'm going to this club. You've got me there. You pay me a lot of money to play like a spastic." So I'm sure he shouldn't use that word, but he looked at me and he just said, "You're a bloody idiot." And he stuck his hand out and I went, "But I admire that."
Yeah.
Honest. And you know what? I regret it.
I was going to ask you that.
I was trying to do the right thing, and I did do the right thing, but I freaking regret it, because I found out in the first year of Super League, there were guys that were injured that didn't play but still got 100% of their money.
Dude, the money in Super League was mental.
Yeah.
It was just crazy. I can't believe that even happened, but it did. And oh, so you missed the boat there.
Just the big payday, yeah.
Yeah.
Big payday.
Oh,
wow. I don't look. Deep down, I know I did the right thing. I don't want to let anyone down.
You didn't tarnish your own dynasty as well. Like, you've got your own pride. You've got your career. You've got a grand final. Why tarnish it by playing some substandard footy with a broken body? I'm guessing is what you were thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was shame, but it's been good. I watched the Warriors a lot. Mark Robinson lives over there. I'm on the Gold Coast. He lives
cool.
in the corner. I bumped into him on the odd occasion. And it's really good to see the Warriors. I wasn't expecting too much out of their coach, because he came out of nowhere, and I really didn't have a high opinion of guys that had been in the system, system coaches.
Yep.
I actually said to Mark, I wrote him a text, and it's the only time I've gotten involved in the Warriors conversation. Because the Warriors was born out of Mount Albert.
Yeah.
Whole concept. Mount Albert were the ones that went to the New Zealand or the Auckland Rugby League.
Yes.
And put the proposition forward and drove it until the Auckland Rugby League took it and ran with it.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
And then they were smart enough to figure out that the Warriors were struggling for not having a reserve grade side. So it was too big a stepping stone to go from Mount Albert straight into the Warriors team, and for any other club.
Yeah.
But they came out with the Auckland Lions. And it was called the Lions because that was the Mount Albert Lions.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
Auckland, Mount Albert stood back after a while, and Auckland took full control and distanced themselves from the Lions. But that's where that came. So I wanted to have some more involvement with them, but the opportunity never came. No one from the Warriors ever rang and asked me to come over and help out. I thought I could have been useful in some form of coaching, like defensive coach maybe. Yeah. But when we'd gone through a few coaches and we weren't getting results, I wrote Mark a text and I said, like Wayne Bennett, I saw it. You need someone like a Wayne Bennett because the Kiwi boys had him on a pedestal already. He didn't have to bullshit his way there. He wasn't a white man with fork tongue. He had the runs on the board. Yeah. I was sensitive to the New Zealand cultural, what I thought was an important part of the whole. I said, you need a leader. You need someone. I pointed this guy. I said, you need someone like Geoff Toovey, he's coached Manly. He wanted to coach the Warriors. He applied for the job. I'm the one that was behind all that. Oh, mate, I was begging for them to employ him when he applied. I said, can you imagine, the times I've been in that game against Newcastle, Toovey was over there. And the Kiwis loved him. Although they were looking, he had a lot more hair back then. Although looking at this little blonde-haired guy, looks like a school kid, picking up big forwards and smashing them and all that. The guy was, played above his weight, toughest little prick I've ever played with. And I just knew the Kiwis viewed him. They had him on that pedestal. Yes. That you can't put yourself on a pedestal and expect respect. It's got to be given to you. You don't tell people you've got to give it to them. Yeah. I knew Geoff could be that leader that would be like a Pied Piper for the Islanders. Because I believe the Islanders need a strong figurehead. Right. Coming out of strong families, patriarchal or matriarchal families, the parents are the leaders in that family. They need good leadership. Yes. So they'll respect someone like a Geoff Toovey. I think he could have gotten there and you need to do this, you need to harden up, and they all would have followed it. I thought he was a real good thing for that dynamic. Yeah. But I saw Mark afterwards and he reckoned he never got the text. And I said, it's the only suggestion I've ever made. I'm an armchair expert. Yeah. And Webster hadn't done anything by the stage, so I think it was the start of the year. And so he's won another one. He's won another one. Yeah. And he's ended up being the best thing for them. So whatever he's done, congratulations to him. Yeah. It's great. And the Kiwis really need to back it up. They can't just have one good year. They need. That's my point. Yeah. Proof's in the pudding. Back it up. Let's see what they got in 2024. Yeah. Well, I hope from the chatter I've heard, and it's what the Kiwi boys need to take on. They need to start believing that that's what they achieved last year was their minimum. Like they've got to be shooting for higher. They can't just expect to do the same as last year. Yeah. It actually gets harder. You've got to work harder than you ever worked before. So, good luck to them. I hope they do well. Yeah. Oh, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and what an amazing career. You've got yourself a grand final. That must be like the most epic memory to look back on, and beating Australia in some test matches. And I'm sure there's a heap of stuff in there that we haven't covered, but we'll be here all night. But, mate, look, pleasure to meet you. Talking to you, Dave, and I really appreciate guys like yourself putting out these podcasts because it's exposure for New Zealand Rugby League. They need it. There's not enough of it going on. So I'll talk to a few guys and get a few more really good guys that your audience would love to listen to. Oh, mate, I'll be super appreciative of that. But for now, I'm super appreciative of yourself for giving up your time and, just telling us all the gory stories of back in the day. It's been an absolute privilege. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the watchers out there. Thanks for tuning into the show. Make sure you join the Facebook group. It's growing like wildfire. Get amongst it. And we'll see you next time for Kickoff. Awesome. Thanks, Dave. See you, mate. Full time.